Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome into HeroesCCL Free Agent Tournament presented by Wisdom. You all know me, I'm Bahamut, I'm back for Season 3, but we've also got a new friend with us. We've got Justing joining us for the Free Agent Day number 2 and 3, as he also will be our analyst for Season 3 officially as well. Justing, my friend, how are you doing, and are you ready for all of this Heroes the Storm action?
Hey Baha, I'm doing great. It's great to be here. I'm excited to get to try my hand at casting some of these games. I'm really excited to see how the new talent coming into CCL is going to be after playing in it myself.
Yeah, I'm ecstatic to have you here. I'm going to sit back and let you do all the heavy lifting. I'm just going to talk about talents from time to time. You'll do all the play-by-play and everything. So a lot on your plate, not a lot on mine. It's going to be a fun day of Here's the Storm action because we got a lot of cool matches for you all today. There were a few best of threes yesterday to kind of get ready for our top 8 for today's free agent tournament. And we'll get into that in just a little bit because right now, Justing, we have you here and you have so much experience from HGC, from HeroesCCL, from other grassroots leagues as well. And with all of your knowledge, I want to ask you, what's the one thing you're looking for or looking forward to from all of these teams today?
So I'm really hoping to see what teams play well together, and above all, which players kind of stand out and which players sort of show up and show that proactive gameplay, like on the map, knowing where to go, where to push, instantly knowing what to do, and just being an individual player, I think is really important, especially with so many good free agents that are available. If you want to be able to stand out today, you really need to leave your mark.
We definitely had some standout plays yesterday that formed, as I mentioned, the bracket for today's 4 best of threes, and we can get you up to date on what that's all going to look like right now, because starting at the top of that bracket, we have Peasants Anonymous versus No Name. That will be our first best of 3 of the day. And then moving downward, that is going to be the rest of your matchups. As a reminder, tomorrow, Sunday, October 3rd, you can see it, is going to be the 2 semifinals. Those are best of 3s. And the culmination of this entire free agent tournament will be, like tomorrow, on October 3rd. It's going to be that best of 5. I'm just so excited to be back into HeroesCCL. I'm glad to have you here with me, Justing. But as I mentioned, there was a lot of games yesterday. And from the couple teams that did play, what's a team that you're kind of looking forward to watch today, Justing?
So I'm most excited for the first and third match of the day between Peasants Anonymous and No Name, as well as Scaling Copium and Committing Sudoku. I think Team No Name had a lot of standout plays, and they really they looked like they melded really well as a team, which for a free agent, kind of pickup team is really impressive, especially with a lot of them being some lesser known players. Hopaka in particular is someone that I think we should be looking out for, and it'll be interesting to see how they do in the first match going up against Peasants Anonymous with a lot of more well-known players.
Yeah, we can get to those rosters in just a second, because I agree with you. That first and third matchup, No Name had a really, really good best of 3 yesterday up against Inspiration Not Found and just played through that series very quickly in a 2-0 domination fashion. And we can actually break down these rosters a little bit further as we're talking about this, because on the left-hand side, we will be having Peasants Anonymous. We'll have Nintori, Tremor, Unaverted, Kelsier, and Slug Hunter. Justing, on the opposing side of the battleground, who are we going to see on No Name?
On Team No Name, we have Baz Arcade, Simply DK, Pudgenox, Guilty Spark, and Hopaka. Hopaka in particular is a player that has really stood out to me, that I'm really interested to see how he does going up against some of these more well-known players on Peasants Anonymous.
You and I were talking about this before the broadcast started, comparing Peasants Anonymous to No Name. And I was mentioning yesterday, Hopaka had some really good Sylvanas games, but we also agreed Hopaka's got a really great Hanzo as well, and that's something that we have to keep our eyes out for. But when we talk about Hanzo here, what do you think about, Unaverted on Peasants Anonymous here, Justing?
Yeah, so I played with Unaverted for 2 seasons of CCL, and I've got to say that in CCL, he was probably the best Hanzo there. And so having seen Hopaka more recently and having how much he impressed me in the game I saw where he played Hanzo, I think it'll be really interesting to see if either one of them gets Hanzo, how they can pilot that and how much of a show they can put up.
I'm also hoping to see, beyond these Hanzos and everything, when we're talking about these two teams, we have Simply DK, or DK as I just say, versus Tremor in the tanking roles on both these teams. Tremor doesn't have the biggest hero pool, but they've got some really strong tanks. DK yesterday had 2 great Joanna games, utilizing the Falling Sword with the Unstoppable factor to save a lot of friendly members. So when we compare these two tanks, Justing, do you have any kind of lean to one way or the other? Do you think Tremor might be stronger than DK or vice versa?
I'm certainly more familiar with Tremor as a player. He's been really dominant on heavy impact in the NGS. So he's a player that is really, really strong on his comfort picks, his Diablo, his Mei, his Garrosh, things like that. Simply DK is a player that I haven't seen quite as much of, so it will certainly be a bit of a mountain to climb for him to in the matchup against Tremor. But it'll be really interesting to see if he's going to be up to the challenge. He's going to be up for it.
Well, we've talked a lot about the roles and these rosters. Let's talk about the next thing we have for you all. Oh, and that best scene transition. Thank you, production. We've got the maps. We know where we're going here, Justin. We're going to be starting out with Battlefield of Eternity, picked by No Name. And to catch everyone up at home, how we got here, the blue team's going to go ahead and ban away Alterac Pass and Garden of Terror. And No Name will be banning out, Curse Hollow and Sky Temple. Justin, we're starting out with Battlefield of Eternity, what I like to call a tried and true best of 3, best of whatever series kickoff map. What do you think going into this map will be the priority? Is it going to be focused onto race potential, team fight, or is this where you bring out your Samuro and Sergeant Hammer?
Probably not the Sergeant Hammer. Maybe Samuro. We'll see. Pudgenox, I know, played it. But on this map, this is one of the maps where it doesn't, with the XP changes, it doesn't actually go to level 20 as often. So this is a map where you can play more to snowball. So things like Sylvanas are strong. And then also there's the dynamic of trying to poke the Immortals. So I wouldn't be surprised to see either a pick ban onto something like Hanzo, especially with both the teams prioritizing it so heavily. I know Unaverted and most Hanzo players, really favor Hanzo in this map. So Sylvanas, Hanzo, and I'd say Li Ming are probably the important pivots in this map that we should look for.
I agree. Like Li Ming, I think she's not like undervalued, but I think sometimes she kind of skirts by when considering what to pick up on this map, because mages aren't really the hot priority. It's like Greymane, Vala, Hanzo, Lunara, which actually, that's unfortunate. I really wanted to see Pudge's Samuro again because it was really great yesterday, but I want to get your thoughts here. Lunara had some changes, a little, here and there. There's that level 7, what is it? Choking Pollen, I think it is. I know the color of the talent. It basically increases the damage by 200%. You can like burst someone down. Do you think that Lunara starts to make her way back into the meta with that? Or do you think she's just still a little too far off in comparison to like Greymane, Vala, Cassia?
I really do think that Lunara should be getting a higher priority in these games. It'd be nice to see, especially on Battlefield of Eternity, where the Immortal race is so important. You have the level 4 talent, which the name is slipping my mind, but it increases your damage of your poison by quite a bit against things that are not enemy heroes, and that includes the Immortal. So that is definitely something that we could look for, is a potential Lunara.
I love that Nature's Calling. It's really, really strong to be able to amplify your siege, siege damage, every damage outside of heroic team fighting. And on that same note, Artanis this is the one kind of niche map for him with that amateur opponent at level 1. There's just a lot of these little niche and interesting things to consider, like you're saying with the Nature's Calling from Lunara. But we're getting through our bans here, and it's looking like a couple targets here and there onto some of, Samuro mostly, because I was actually looking at the draft chat, and Pudge was not too happy about that. But Opaka and Unaverted will not be able to play that Hanzo we were discussing, so we get another okay dude. But when we start things out here, Justin, what's your priority? When you draft on Battlefield, what do you look for a team?
So I think there are quite a few range, but we'll maybe see if there is a preference towards things like the Li Ming, things like, well, there's Lunara right away. So, I mean, you love to see it, because I really do think that Lunara priority should be sort of skyrocketing. I think she's one of the ones that, since the most recent changes, she's just really, really strong in general. She sort of, I could kind of go on and on about how strong Lunara is right now. All right, well, she has basically every single thing besides healing. She has siege, wave clear, vision control, mobility, burst, poke. She basically has everything besides healing. And the Sylvanas does get picked up, which isn't a huge surprise on this map. And I also think Stukov, even after the nerfs, is still S tier, S plus tier, like really, really probably the strongest healer still, I think.
So the reactive ballista spores, I think the range, like if we're talking about like range numbers, I saw it somewhere. It went from like a range of 8 in game to a range of like 6, which was the 20% nerf, or I believe that's what it was. So, and someone in my chat, I was actually talking about that. They were like, that pretty much hits every hero. And I was like, well, unless Zul Jin finishes level 1 in baseline if he goes Headhunter. But that's regardless as that reactive ballista spore still does hit a lot of people in a grouped up team fight, and I agree, Stukov still a hot priority. But speaking of other priorities, solo lane and a healer for the side of Peasants Anonymous in this Lucio and the Hogger. What are your thoughts on this Hogger so very early? Is this is just a priority pick for Nintori, or is this maybe something they're starting to build here and they really want that solo lane nailed down on the side of Peasants Anonymous?
So you have pretty good choices that are all like relatively strong with, Hogger, Urel, Blaze, and things like that. Hogger probably does the best on this map in particular because of the way that the orbs work on the Immortal Phase. He does the best at interacting with those. You can knock people into them, you can stun them into walls and the tight chokes where people have to go to burn. It also could be a bit of comfort for Nintori or whoever's playing it.
That's a good point. Yeah, the devastating blow is a great tool to be able to knock people into the stuns from the Immortals from Belith and Alarian. So I absolutely agree. I wasn't even considering just the baseline ability. And you also have Lucio with the sound wave to bop people around as well. A lot of good control coming out from Peasants Anonymous. As we get back into the draft after this ban phase, a Diablo and a Li Ming will be banned out by both these teams. But No Name has the Sylvanas already, goes into the Vala, and we'll see a Dahaka. Now, I don't see a ton of Dahaka on this map, but Dahaka with the not quite a few, but with the slight adjustments we've been seeing here and there from him, he is really jumped up in priority for the solo lane.
Yeah, Dahaka on this map, you kind of have to run a strategy that sort of takes advantage of the global, and they do have the Vala and the Sylvanas that can burn really quickly, so that might be kind of their strategy, is to create sort of a 4-1 split where they're able to burn and then have the Dahaka catch the waves. Ooh. Oh man, McIntyre in shambles. But the thrall's
in
actually
shambles?
picked up. Well,
I'm sure. Well, maybe broken down. So happy.
The first game, it's just a shame, right? That the first game McIntyre misses out on as a thrall, and it's just the worst luck or the best luck because he gets to watch it. But
that is true.
An averted thrall, interesting.
I'm excited about this. I have talked about wanting more Thrall. I actually was DMing McIntyre yesterday talking about Thrall in the solo lane and all that kind of stuff, but this is going to be a Thrall, which I would assume is going to be in the 4-man. Could we see a Crash Lightning? I highly doubt it, but Echo the Elements is just way too good, as well as Rolling Thunder into a Dahaka, into the Joanna. But both of these rosters are really strong. I love the Muradin for the side of Peasants Anonymous. I talked about DK yesterday, simply DK on the Joanna, so this is another comfort pick. Opaka's got a comfort pick as they've practiced that Sylvanas quite a bit. When we look at these two drafts here, Justin, just before we load in, I want to get your thoughts on maybe which team do you lean into with maybe a stronger overall draft and could potentially take the game on Battlefield?
I would have to go with Peasants Anonymous in the first draft, although their draft is a little bit weird. They have very good tools to sort of just play the map. The red team needs to more or less force burn phases and commit to race and allow the Dahaka to split soak. But I think that if the blue team is able to sort of keep their lanes under control, they should be the ones that are sort of in the advantageous position with poking with stuff like Lunara. And then I wouldn't be surprised actually if Thrall does go Crash, and I would kind of prefer that. And then you also have Muradin, who's one of the few tanks that can contribute to burn. So I kind of prefer I think the blue team's strategy should be a little bit easier to play out than the red teams.
All right, we're not even 30 minutes in, and Justin is calling for a Crash Lightning game. It's going to be a fun day of Heroes and Storm for our free agent tournament here on HeroesCCL. And we want to thank you all for joining us for these games. We're having a little bit of a load here into Battlefield. No issues or anything just like that. It's just loading into the map. Sometimes, Heroes likes to take its time, and I think Heroes is just as excited as we are to get into this game. So we'll be getting into Battlefield in just a second, but I agree. I lean into Peasants Anonymous draft a little bit more. I think their scaling throughout the game is very strong, and we'll see if No Name can scale into that or take advantage of the early game siege potential. We are here, loaded into Battlefield of Eternity, so we can get you introduced to these teams. Map number 1, the season has begun, ladies and gentlemen, and on the left-hand side, we got the members of Peasants Anonymous. Slug Hunter on the Lucio, Kelsier on the Lunara, Nintori playing the Hogger, Unaverted on the Thrall, and Tremor on the Muradin.
And on the red team, Team No Name, we have Azarcade playing the Vala. We have Johanna, played by Simply DK. Stukov, being played by Guilty Spark. Hopaka, playing Sylvanas. And Dahaka, being played by Pudgenox.
We have our teams introduced, the map has begun, and Justin, I gotta say, I'm so excited to be casting these games. I'm glad to be casting them with you as well. We get that player insight that you have, as well as that tier list. I mean, that tier list, I was talking about it yesterday on stream. I love the rankings and everything like that, like S+++, which is Mephisto and the Lost Vikings. But funny enough, there was actually a Mephisto game yesterday, and it was heavily won by Mephisto. So proving that your tier list is on point. Unfortunately, though, there's no Crash Lightning from Thrall. It is going to be that Rolling Thunder, which I do like the Rolling Thunder because percent base damage, your ability to burst down higher healthful heroes is well exponential at that point, and a little more self-sustained for unaverted. But we have this bottom lane 4v4 with our Hogger versus Dahaka in top lane, and just taking stock of some of the level 1 talents, really good Sentinel Wisp from the Lunara. Very much love how much vision you can gain from said Sentinel Wisp in the rotations, and just how much information you can gain as well from that.
Yeah, I think that this 4v4 probably sort of favors the red team, I'd say. They have the double ranged and arguably the better early game sustain coming out from the Stukov versus the Lucio, as well as just having Vala, Sylvanas. They should be stronger in the 4v4, so because of this, you actually see Thrall rotate top, because the blue team knows that, so that's just a smart play by them. And Tremor's just checking this out. He's probably not going to really commit to it because he knows better, but it's a good split by the blue team to recognize that they would be losing that 4v4 and to have Thrall rotate top to help the Hoggers secure the top camp. So, smart macro play from the blue team.
And that was Pudge utilizing the Brushstock to get into the bottom lane, so he's got to meander his way all the way back to that top, and Thrall and Hogger are still pushing things up. Holpaka taking a lot of damage in this bottom lane, almost getting bursted down by Lunara's damage over time, and if that was level 7, that choking pollen really would have taken down the Sylvanas. But we're killless so far. Top lane actually does have Dahaka getting pushed around by the Hogger and the Thrall, if we can check that out here. Just want to see how well Pudge is handling this lane. Actually, a lot more sustainability than I expected. And I was looking to see the Essence wasn't utilized either, so it's just Pudge playing that really well. I just saw them getting bounced around on the minimap. Regardless, we are getting ready for our first Immortal Phase. We'll be announced here in 10 seconds, and we'll be up and available in 40 for contest. And in that time for the Immortal to spawn here, Justing, it's time to get some Bruiser camps.
Yeah, the blue team is a lot quicker on getting on it. I'm not sure how much that will matter. We'll see if the red team does it a little bit faster with the Stukov and Vala. It'll be interesting to see if the blue team is able to push out both lanes because of their advantage, and we'll see whether the teams... Oh, actually, the blue team capped their bruisers really fast, which might mean that they want to push with them specifically, because the red team got it later. It actually might end up benefiting them in the long run because they can allow the Dahaka to, push with it, and they can play on the other side of the map. But we'll see what they actually end up doing.
Yeah, Hogger bouncing around in the top lane right now, and that camp is, well, they're trying to clear it out as best they can. There's always arguments to be made between, do you grab it at 2 minutes and 45? Do you grab it immediately when you finish it out? Because it depends how far it gets into the lane during the objective phase. But the objective phase is here, and Tremor will use the Dwarf Toss to disengage, throws the Stormbolt back into Pudge's face. A little bit of CC to slow down the Dahaka from advancing into the friendly team, while Vala continues to work on the Immortal on the south side of our screen. The Immortal phase will be 50%, and then it will go to the left and the right-hand side. This is a standard start for this map, as Nintori finds themselves very far into the enemy team. I was thinking there would be a knockback from Nintori's hammer or mace, but flail, I think is the actual term for that one, but not going to be utilized. Ooh, big push off from Lucio. Holpaka taking a lot of damage, does use the Haunting Wave to get away, and that is going to be Stukov healing up said Sylvanas.
So you can tell the blue team's doing something really smart here. They're going for a 4-1 split where they defend with 4, because if both teams were to trade out race, the red team would surely win with the Sylvanas, Stukov, and Vala. So, but because of this, the blue team actually knows what they're doing, and they do just look to go and engage right away. They go on to Nintori, and okay, red team's kind of, they knew what they're doing, and now the blue team's probably going to just retreat and see if they can play for the burn, but it's going to be close.
This is going to be a very close race between both teams, and we're going to be seeing an 867 shield for Alarian, as that was won by the members of Peasants Anonymous, and they will immediately run to the bottom lane on the side of our blue team. That staggering blow from Hogger in the engagement there, just not enough to knock back the enemy team, and First Blood was found by No Name. Funny enough, No Name's actually pressing up this bottom lane into the enemy team face, and I guess it does push out the wave, but that's a huge spin from Alarian onto Holpaka. Great push off from Slug Hunter to solidify the kill. Tremor will be able to get that last auto attack onto Sylvanas, as the Immortal loses a lot of its HP from Vala, burning down said Alarian, but the front gate of the fort will fall during this siege.
So not a huge advantage coming from the Immortal overall. Even though they got the kill, we're going to see if they opt in for more of like a slow siege now, knowing that they're 4v3. I think that the red team might have been posturing like that because they know that they have the global in the top lane, but it seemed like, oh, yeah, they're actually still looking to engage here, 4v4. See if they get anything.
Rush stop from Dahaka comes out. The drag won't connect. Pudge burrows into the ground for a second just to buy some time. And this will be Thrall poking out with some Chain Lightning. Thrall did go in to the Frostwolf pack at level 4. Needs to get those 6, well, skill shots with the Feral Spirit. If you miss one or if you die, it resets those back to 0. Could you imagine, Justing, if you had convection and it worked that way? You miss one flame strike and convection resets. Oh, that would be a rough go.
They should change that maybe. Then maybe people will be less inclined to pick it in their Storm League games.
You know, it's really weird. Every time I take convection, I have this weird issue with mana constantly.
Yeah, same. And I always just like don't finish it either, which is the other thing.
Great healing pathogen out from Guilty Spark onto DK just to make sure that that damage over time from Lunara does not solidify the kill into the Johanna, as she will hearth back to get full. And I want to point this out. It is that choking pollen from the Lunara at level 7. So if she's able to get those 3 stacks of Nature's Toxin and then hit an enemy here with the Noxious Blossom, that is a lot of damage. I think one time I was like casting and I think someone took like 1,000 damage.
Yeah, at level 20 it does like 1,050 damage, I think, when you hit that Q with the 3 stacks on it. So it's a considerable amount of burst damage, especially on a character that just has so much poke and sustain damage, which is one of the biggest reasons why I think that Lunara is just an incredible hero right now.
We're into our second Immortal Phase of map number 1, Battlefield of Eternity, and 10 Talonteers are looming for both sides. This is going to be a burn from both teams, but look at that race potential from the side of Peasants Anonymous. They really took down Belith quickly. We'll see what the positioning looks like for these two Immortals. Will be the north-south position, and it looks like Peasants Anonymous opt for a defensive position.
So Sylvanas is instantly realizing that they're not going to have level 10s for this, so immediately Hopaka's going to the top lane. Try to get that level 10. They're actually just forcing it on the blue side. Forcing their level 10s like they're supposed to, which is smart. So the blue team has made a lot of just like macro decisions that have been kind of getting them to this point. This is going to be where the game is kind of either make or break, I think, on a map like Battlefield of Eternity where things are so snowbally. Oh, Hopaka DPI'd enemy lines.
No way! Oh, I thought Tremor didn't see it, but yeah, Hopaka, I don't know if you get out of this one here. There's going to be the dwarf. The dwarf
launch to stagger it as well.
Yeah. Oh.
They don't.
Ah, no. Okay. Well, we do have. Well, there's your stagger, or there's a double kill overall into the Stukov as well. Kelsier with just this Lunara. I'm looking really quickly. 21,000 heroic damage on the Lunara. In comparison, Sylvanas on the opposing side, rounding up 14,000. This Lunara, Kelsier, doing a phenomenal job for the friendly team, but Tremor on the Murden setting up a lot of great plays as Unaverted finishes out that level 4 Frostwolf pack. I did want to point one thing out, and I love taking this on Murden because I've been playing him more and more. Heavy impact at level 7. It's an 80% slow for 1.5 seconds, and that allows things like Lunara, like Thrall, like Lucio to step up and CC the enemy team, but big CC coming out from Baz with these Raid of Vengeance. Sylvanas goes down. I wasn't expecting that right there, but a great drag onto Murden. He pops the avatar form, will continue to live, bounces out from Nintori on this Hogger. DK is going to use the Falling Sword. Does that mitigate the damage over time? Yes, it does, but there's still damage coming in. 13 HP, Slug Hunter goes in and finds the triple auto into this Johanna, and they're threatening on the side of Peasants Anonymous onto a keep right now, Justing. This is so much pressure.
Yeah, this is not great for the red team as another one actually falls. They might even be in threat of losing the game actually if too many members go down here. Death timers are about 20 seconds, over 20 seconds. The blue team might actually look, we'll see if they look for an end or not. If they get one more kill, they probably will. No, they just decide to leave. Oh.
A lot of those blue bars are low, but yeah, please go ahead.
The red team, you can tell that they realized that was kind of their last moment to take an even fight before the enemy team hit 13 while they were being pushed on. So they really forced the engage. The issue with that though for the red team is that their comp really doesn't do well at forcing engages. They sort of want to play much slower with their double ranged hyper carries with Bala and Sylvanas and Johanna as their front line. It's really hard for them to force that engage. So I think they kind of overforced it, and the Earthquake definitely sort of shuts that down real quick. So it was the right idea, but their composition just doesn't necessarily cater towards that too much.
I think I'm looking at this Thrall build, and you mentioned Earthquake, and I feel like somewhere in the universe, McIntyre is very, very happy. I know we keep bringing him up because we do miss him, but he always advocated for these Earthquakes, and there were so many Thralls in Season 2 that just went sundering, and he was so happy up until 10, and then it was just... Monka. Just Monka, whatever you want it to be. Immortal Phase, the third one of the game, will be spawning here in the west-east positioning. And for anyone that doesn't know at home, we as observers always see the setup from the blue side. So those axes on the minimap, that's the Immortal that Peasants Anonymous need to burn down. No Name have the Immortal that they need to race on the right-hand side. So we're setting up for race potential Immortals, and we'll see if that's going to be the immediate rush from both these teams, or will it be a defense from the side of Peasants Anonymous? Because it seems like they are kind of set up for this defense around the Immortal here, Justing.
Yeah, the blue team's doing a really good job of playing around their space, but the red team really needs to be taking this opportunity to look for fight. Ooh, Hopaka kind of with a bit of a whiff on the arrow there. Again, they're just fighting way too fast. It seems like the blue team kind of is sort of just kind of dismantling them, because the red team just looks a little bit more disjointed.
Well, you say dismantling, and we just found ourselves a quad kill in favor for the side of Peasants Anonymous, who rushed through the top lane. And I say this whenever I cast CCL. Ladies and gentlemen at home, take note of this. You don't need Immortal. You don't need that other camp on the map, because they've already grabbed it for bottom lane. You go core. You've got a few members down the opposing side. Your damage is phenomenal between Lunara, Muradin, and Thrall. And this is actually going to be Baz stepping out once again, trying to find some auto-attack damage. The core is already falling rapidly. Vala does go down. Some respawns are happening, but there's not enough damage to mitigate what is happening to the core. And Lunara is able to get those auto-attacks in, and that is going to be game number 1. Over to the side of Peasants Anonymous. GG. Well played. A solid, on the dot, Justing, 12-minute game.
12 minutes. Yeah, that was impressive for sure, coming out from Peasants Anonymous. They're putting on a bit of a clinic. Things were even only for a little bit, and then they sort of just took it and ran with it. The little macro decisions that they made really ended up just sort of snowballing from the first Immortal onwards.
And I have to say, the Lunara play was probably one of the MVP moments. Slug Hunter had some great push-offs for the slow. You have Muradin with those dwarf launches, or excuse me, I can't think of the term, but either way, he's got that heavy impact to be able to slow the enemy members with the dwarf toss. There we go. Could not remember the baseline ability. And there was just so much team synergy and hero synergy with this team from Peasants Anonymous. What do you do on the side of No Name, Justing? What do you do to kind of reel back game number 2? Is it a map priority, or is it a little bit of a draft, and maybe your team, No Name, needs to be a little bit more on the gas like the opposing side, Peasants Anonymous, was?
I'd like to see Team No Name draft more of a team fight oriented comp, that maybe even like a dive comp, because they showed moments of obscene aggression, but maybe too much than their comp could really handle. They sort of lost in macro, which is somewhat expected, because I think that the blue team is probably a little bit more familiar with each other, with playing with each other and stuff like that. So I think that's somewhat expected. I'd like to see Team No Name, if they do choose the map, take them to a more team fight oriented map, such as Infernal Shrines or Volskaya if it's available, just so that they can, and maybe even pick more like a dive comp, because it seemed like they were sort of just trying to fight a little bit too fast for their comp.
There was that literally the final fight of that that match right there, excuse me, from Hopaka. Not that I'm not trying to be like, oh, Hopaka was the reason the game was lost, but there was that haunting wave in to try and maybe jump into the backline a little bit. But as we talk about this draft, there's a lot of mobility, and you might at home say, well, Thrall doesn't have mobility. Well, yeah, he does have Wind Fury, which is a baseline ability to increase his movement speed. Hogger has the Hog Wild, Lunara Leaping Strikes, Lucio Wall Riding, pushing off Muradin with these dwarf tosses. So being able to dive the enemy team was so difficult from the side of No Name. And as we get ready for our next map, I have to kind of agree with you. I wonder if we actually do consider more of a dive comp, because Peasants Anonymous, they didn't play that map slow at all. I mean, as I said, it's a 12-minute map, and you mentioned it in the draft. Battlefield of Eternity doesn't always go to level 20, and I think we just got a perfect showcase from Peasants Anonymous being able to be like, yeah, it's a 12-minute map. We were just foot on the gas, and they just constantly put pressure into the enemy team from Thrall rotations, Hogger rotations as well. I just kudos to the side of Peasants Anonymous with the read into No Name. But now, as I said, we get ready for our second map here. And if you go into this dive composition from No Name, Justing, what's your priority? What's the setup for this draft-wise?
Well, with how aggressive Hopaka played on Sylvanas, I'd like to see him maybe play, I don't know if he plays this, but if he plays something maybe like Genji or even like a Li Ming or something that you can kind of get in there more with, I think that would be nice to see. I'd also like to see simply DK possibly play something other than Johanna, just because we've already seen it. And I mean, if that's their comfort, that's okay.
That's fair.
But I think they either need to be more coordinated with how they dive with the falling shield, falling sword, or they just need to, I don't know, I would like to see them play just a more aggressive teamfight comp in general, where they can just kind of turn on the gas and they can just go at it.
Well, let's discuss what map we're heading into, because that actually will kind of develop this draft a little bit further here, as we do have No Name choosing to take us to Tomb of the Spider Queen. That means that Peasants Anonymous... Actually, sorry, I was reading that backwards. So No Name's the losing team. They opted for map pick. So this is, as you were saying, Justing, they've got something planned on the side of No Name. What is it? We're going to have to see once the draft starts and once it begins to unfold. I like Tomb of the Spider Queen. I have a feeling we might see DK on that Joanna once again, but I agree with you. I'd love to see like a Diablo or a Nubarak, and then you pair that with like a Li Ming and a Greymane, or something to get that reset potential. The Genji would be a cool, that comes to mind as well. You can get the reset on the Swift Strike as well. You have Greymane and Nubarak as dive buddies. I always like to talk about that. Whenever you build a dive composition, you can't just have a divey tank and then expect the rest of your team to do it. You need a dive buddy, and Greymane dives so well with those tanks. Nubarak comes in with the double CC, Greymane dark flights in, razor swipes, auto attacks, has the inner beast up, and then Li Ming or Genji, one of those reset type heroes, comes in with the big burst of either a Swift Strike and a bunch of Shurikens, or they have a combo from the Arcane Orb and Magic Missiles. But we are ready to go into Tomb of the Spider Queen, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all for hanging out with us for the Heroes CCL Free Agent Tournament presented by Wisdom, and we are here into Tomb of the Spider Queen. What do you think the bans could be here, Justing? Do you think there was anything in the last game that you're just like, yeah, that Lunara doesn't make it through?
Yes, I would hope that there's a Lunara ban coming out from Team No Name. It's interesting that they're still respecting Pudgenock's Samuro enough to ban it. I think that if you are really good at Samuro, he could be one of the strongest characters in the game, but it's sort of something that you have to master, and that is a lot of respect to Pudgenock's. And then looks like Simply DK is not going to be playing their Johanna after all. So the Junkrat ban is smart as well. I just hope that there's either I hope that there's a Lunara ban, because I think if not, there's a pretty high chance that Lunara will be first picked by Peasants Anonymous.
It was actually map number 2. It was Tomb of the Spider Queen. It was map 1 or number 2. I can't remember off the top of my head from yesterday, but it was No Name versus Inspiration Not Found, and Pudgenock's was, I'm not exaggerating, living in the backline on Samuro, and I was commentating and just watching constantly, like, oh, okay, like, where are you going to swap your clone to? And the micro and the macro of Pudge on their Samuro, heavily respected, but we're going to see ourselves a Stitches.
Yeah, okay, this is one of Stitches' best map.
Yeah.
One of his best maps, and it's something that, Tremor is, I think he's really been sort of branching out lately. I know he was sort of, he was a bit, his hero pool was a bit stagnant. He was focusing on, he was really good at what he played, but I think lately he's been sort of branching out and he's been expanding his hero pool. And you see that with this. I hope, no Lunara, so I'm fearful for Team No Name, but Sylvanas and Garrosh are both good pickups, and Garrosh in particular is very, very strong into Stitches. It's probably the best tank matchup to play into Stitches, because Stitches wants to play fights slowly. He doesn't like to be hard engaged on.
Okay.
And Garrosh sort of forces the fight very quickly, and it's the opposite of what Stitches wants. And also, if Stitches ever hooks Garrosh, he has a bad time with that as well.
Oh, I'm sorry, Haloran. This is your warning if they swap skins. Here's your Haloran warning. Nazeebo coming into what a lot of people would say is probably one of Nazeebo's best maps. Any map where you're double rotating, you can double rotate quickly, like Tomb of the Spider Queen or Infernal Shrines. This is a phenomenal place for Nazeebo to live. There was that Junkrat ban. I wonder, do we see? There it is. It's actually going to be coming through.
I'm hoping we see the cheeky combo between the Stitches Gorge and the Anduin pull. It's a bit of a budget Medivh portal. I'm excited to see whether they do that, if that's what they have in mind. I'm thinking they do. Also, I'm pretty sure that the Light Bomb lasts for the exact amount of time for the Gorge. Like, you can time it very, very easily with Gorge so that they get stunned immediately out of it. So that's a good combo for that as well.
So we were talking about engagement potential as we're waiting for these bans to come through in our next picks, and I'm curious, in comparison, Garrosh versus a Nubarak, because I was actually thinking a Nubarak for the side of No Name. Cocoon mitigates the Gorge value; it actually spits the person out immediately, and also you have all the beetles to eat some of the hooks. You've got a lot of CC and mobility. Just out of curiosity, like, would you lean one way or the other, or do you still think this Garrosh is it's going to play to the aggressiveness that No Name needs?
I think it's a little bit interesting that they picked up the Garrosh so early, just having the tank priority that early. I think that means that they want to flex their other picks. Oh, instantly, though. Rexark El'Thas. So they had this planned out for sure. They're ready from the Peasants Anonymous.
But I mean, this is actually a really, really, really good draft from Peasants Anonymous. I think there's so much good control. You have Gravity Lapse, Zombie Walls, Chastise to play around the Stitches hooks. You've got a Rexar with the Misha charge. Hey, we get a whole Paka with the Hanzo, so we'll see what they're going to go into. Is it going to be a little bit of a hybrid build? Is it going to be an explosive arrow build? These are some fun drafts, but I want to get your thoughts here, Justin. What's the breakdown? Who do you lean into to win Tomb of Spider Queen based off the drafts? Not considering map number 1, but just literally based off the drafts.
I don't think that there's a clear-cut victor in the drafts. I think a lot of it is just going to come down to gameplay. Leoric is definitely a good pick into the enemy comp. The Peasants Anonymous seems to have they kind of just took as much wave clear as possible, which, since it's Tomb, that's actually a pretty good strategy to play. It makes the map a lot easier to play. So if and I mean, they can also play for their level 20s with Nazeebo. But at the same time, I think Leoric level 20 is really, really strong, and it might be sort of difficult to really force engages if Tremor isn't hitting hooks. Whereas on Team No Name, it's very clear and easy for them to engage. They have a lot of tools. They have Sylvanas, who could go mind control. They have Leoric with Entomb. They have Hanzo with Arrow, and Garrosh himself. So I'd say it's pretty even, this one. I think the drafts are less favorable for one team than they were in the previous game.
All right, well, we're loaded into Tomb of the Spider Queen, and we're going to go ahead and get on into our second map and our first best of 3 of the day. On the left-hand side, we got Peasants Anonymous, who are trying to close things out in a quick 2-0 fashion and move on to tomorrow's semifinals. We got Kelsier on the Kael'thas, Slug Hunter on the Anduin, Unaverted playing Nazeebo, Tremor on the Stitches, and Nintori on the Rexar.
And on Team No Name, we have Hopaka playing his Hanzo, which I've hyped up a bit. Simply DK playing Garrosh, Pudgenox playing Leoric, Bazarcade playing Sylvanas, and Guilty Spark playing Lucio.
We have a Patrick Creation Stitches. I was kind of hoping for a Hungry for More to see how many stacks Tremor could be building up here. I always bring this up because there was a Leon Black Stitches game I casted when Hungry for More came out. This was back in like the Celebrity Clash League ages ago, and he had by I want to say 18 minutes in the game, he had 50-some stacks on Hungry for More. And I was like, geez, Leon, can you chill on the rotations? But still, it's really cool to see. Regardless, Tremor gets chunked, Baz gets hit with a hook, little living bomb thrown onto the Sylvanas, but no kill just yet, and we will break out into our double soak between top and mid, and our solo laners to rotate into bottom lane. Toss onto, that's a really good leap of faith onto Tremor, but does Guilty Spark have the sustained chase? Push off from Lucio will connect. Kelsier gets the Gravity Lapse and the Living Bomb onto Baz, who does spread that over to DK. You got to share that Living Bomb, as that's a really good scatter arrow to be able to find the kill into Stitches. But, you're on the wrong side of the battleground there, bud.
He's buying time, though. I really like just that he's fearless. I appreciate it still. He's pulling 2 members way back here, way out of the rotation, so his team should be able to get ahead on the rotations off of this. Even though that was a 1-for-1, that was definitely highly in favor of Hopaka and Team No Name, so you love to see it. I think as the game progresses, Leoric also might become sort of invincible against the blue team. I think if they get real late game, Pudgenox might be able to be in a real carry position in Leoric.
Garrosh is going to go down into mid lane. Looks like there was a 1-2 punch from Slug Hunter, Kelsier, and Tremor. Maybe a 3 punch with the extra members around there. One thing we didn't talk about is going to be the Garrosh going into body check at level 1. You reduce the movement speed by 35%, but also the healing by 30%, which onto the stitches would be really good to mitigate some of the value of Patchwork Creation. But just onto anyone, when you're able to step up, get the body check, get the toss everything, and you can mitigate some of that Anduin Divine Star healing. So nice level 1 pickup for said Garrosh, and as we're getting to some other talents, we can look at those a little bit later. I just want to point out that we also do have the Piercing Light, but there's going to be a hook and a kill onto Pudgenox. 3rd kill for the side of Peasants Anonymous. 1 kill over to No Name.
The red team's on No Name is sort of winning in macros still, though. They had Sylvanas go to the bottom lane and steal the Siege Giants. I call them lobsters, so I'm gonna have to get used to that.
Wait. Lobsters?
I look at them. I see them as lobsters. Yeah.
Hey, you know, we always learn
rocks.
We always learn new terminology here on CCL.
Yeah,
lobsters.
That's an acceptable term. They're lobsters, yeah, but they're actually Siege Giants, I believe, is what everyone else calls them. But those are stolen by the Sylvanas just solo, which is pretty good. And you can tell that the red team, they're a little bit more disjointed, but they're also pulling the blue team around the map a bit, which is kind of not what you'd expect, because the blue team should have more wave clear. So although the red team's getting picked off a bit, they're still keeping up pretty well in their early game, considering that I think their comp has a slight early game deficit.
I'm looking at some of the experience breakdown, and the one thing that's kind of offsetting some of these heroic kills are the mercenaries that have been grabbed by the side of No Name. They got a little 700 and something experience over the opposing side, Peasants Anonymous with 0 mercenary experience. So a lot of these numbers are kind of just equaling out, and realistically, as you look at the total at the bottom, it's about 13,000 to about 13,000 in the experience breakdown. So still very, very good play from the side of No Name, but as we saw in Battlefield of Eternity, things can really spiral out of control for No Name, and Peasants Anonymous can very much take control and advantage of some of those spiraling moments. As both teams have availability for turn-in, Stitches gets tossed by Tremor. There's the body check onto Tremor as well with that reduced healing on the side. Sylvanas utilizing the Haunting Wave to jump in, but not going to be able to solidify the kill. Another hook will connect onto Guilty Spark, and the toss is going to be there, but the friendly toss is not enough, and that's a Stitches kill.
Really close there. Simply DK did miss the Q on his combo, but I don't think that would have made a huge difference. Oh, but they're actually not done yet. Simply DK, it's a nice Q out, but it might not be enough.
Yeah, and this is exactly what I was just talking about, the momentum that the members of Peasants Anonymous can ride here. Once they get some momentum, they really just rocket ahead of the enemy team, and I think this is where we're going to see that experience start to shift massively in favor to Peasants Anonymous. In the last game, when we ended at 12 minutes, it was 16 to 13. 13 and some change, but still, that's about a 3-level difference. Really, really good play from Peasants Anonymous, as I think they're going to find another kill into this Leoric. Oh my god, the read on the hook, Tremor! You're smurfing!
Perfect timing coming up from Tremor with that Stitches hook. Really good. You can tell that they're kind of making the red team sort of just like fall apart. They're just through fighting and not so much through macro. So I'd hope to see the red team sort of just focus on 5v5 team fights and take lots of these skirmishes that they're not seeming to win out on.
Look at this CC into Simply DK. They don't get the kill on the side of Peasants Anonymous, but Garrosh, a character that's often very difficult to burst down because of his trait with armor, got hooked, got hit with the Chastise, a Gravity Lapse, a Zombie Wall, a Flame Strike. The layering of the CC as we see it once again onto DK. Tremor trying to get this kill for the friendly team, and it's actually going to be sniped away by Slug Hunter with that last hit. I gotta say, the communication, the playstyle, the gorge onto Lucio here, it's just so good for Peasants Anonymous as they collapse around another kill. 8-1 in kills, 10-9 in our levels.
Tremor is just absolutely smurfing so far this game. He's hit almost every hook he's thrown out. He's just hitting hooks on cooldown. He's really making an argument for the first big Stitches on Doom of the Spider Queen. I'm not sure if it will be enough though. Although the blue team has Nazebo and some other scaling things, the more I think about it, the red team's comp, if they're able to get a late game level 20 to 20 team fight, for example, or any 5v5 really, where they're on even talents into the late game, I think that their comp might just be a lot stronger. Mostly because Leoric and Garrosh should be relatively invincible if they're able to coordinate their engages and not get picked off before a fight starts. But another hook comes out right away.
Pudge is going to be able to avoid it. There's going to be a Wailing Arrow from Sylvanas. It looks like the members of Peasants Anonymous will back off. A little high five from Lucio. A zombie wall around Simply DK. Zebo does finish out the level 1 on those Widowmakers, that spider questing talent, which was nerfed a little bit in our most recent patch, but still, we have priority onto the spider build for Nazebo, and those 10 talents gained on side of No Name, which Simply DK actually went into Helicopter Garage. Hook Gorge onto Hopaka. I don't know if you make it out of this one alive. There's another leap to get out, but Lucio pushes off. High five. No, Kael'Thas has the living bomb value. Speaking of bombs, that's a Pyroblast. Onto Lucio. Double kill for our Kelsier.
Yeah, the blue team's sort of just flexing on the red team right now, and they're also sort of, there are some things like the Pyroblast that the Lucio just can't really deal with. But mostly it's just Tremor hitting just godlike hooks, just hook after hook. He's really putting on a clinic for Stitches.
Question for you, Justing. I know there's Pyroblast, and this is kind of a one-to-one, like, oh, if there's Pyroblast, do I go Sound Barrier, or is the High Five from Lucio a better pickup to mitigate some of the potential hooks and CC coming out from the Kael'Thas, the Anduin, Rexar as well? Do you lean one way or the other on this?
I was thinking about it. I definitely would prefer to see Sound Barrier here. Just mostly, I mean, just the Pyroblast is almost enough to justify it, honestly, just in itself.
And because that's what I was wondering.
Save. Yeah, there's really no save. You can't ally toss him out of it. You know, the Pyroblast is just going to keep chasing him down. There's really no way to save against it. And level 13's here, so Tremor's even more scary. That's the combo that I talked about earlier.
Yep.
That's definitely going to be a dead Bastercade.
That's a rough one right there, as the boars are unleashed by the Rexar. Hanzo rips an arrow, and Tori getting very low and gets some healing from Slug Hunter. And can you believe that it's actually Garrosh to go down in that engagement? Another god tier hook from Tremor, and that's a Lucio going down. Triple kill. Quad kill for the side of Peasants Anonymous. Can they make it a pentakill? Can they get Hopaka here? Tremor and friends are collapsing around this Hanzo, and I think, yes, Hanzo utilizing that last little bit of agility will go down. Almost getting the trade! Close. Almost getting the trade.
That was actually almost so good. Oh my god. I mean, that was a nice try. That was like 20 HP or less than an auto attack away. That was almost really insane. The levels were even. It would have been a kill there, actually, for Hanzo, so nice try, for sure.
Pudge respawns and immediately gets killed. That is just the worst place to be as a Leoric. Tremor trying to back away, might have overextended in top lane, but no. Slug Hunter comes in with the Desperate Prayer, huge Chastise, little high five action from Lucio. There's a Gorge, Leap of Faith onto Tremor, who does have the Sylvanas on this left-hand side. Baz trying to back away. There's going to be a toss onto Kael'Thas, who split from the friendly team and has no mana. Pops the Arcane Barrier to sustain himself a little bit further, and Kael'Thas does go down. That is the second kill for No Name, but the Sylvanas was the 17th kill for the side of Peasants Anonymous.
Yeah, it's still good. Or Pudge Knox. It's I mean, the blue team still isn't allowed to have, even though it looks like they're really dominant right now, they're not allowed to play with their food too much. If the red team is able to come back and get an even team fight at any point in the game, I think the later the game goes, the better it is for the red team, because the stuff like Kael'Thas and Nazebo, it has a really hard time killing the front line of Garrosh and Leoric. So it's going to be, they have to close the game out clean, or they might actually be in trouble. It's always still losable, especially with how death timers get so long later in the game.
Right now, we'll see another Web Weaver phase. I believe this is the third one for the side of Peasants Anonymous, and these waves are pushed in quite far, so the Web Weavers will descend up as close to the enemy wave as possible. In comparison to Garden of Terror, the Garden of Terror spawns up as far as your minion wave is currently in the lane. So these Web Weavers through bottom and mid will be going down the lane quite far, and in top lane going to be at that 50% mark. But now Lucio being thrown around. There's a huge arrow from Hanzo as well. Big Entomb from the Leoric. Wailing arrow from Sylvanas will connect. Heelsy Sparks trying to find some high fives to the friendly side. There will be a Gorge onto the Hanzo, who doesn't go down because there's a Desperate Prayer from Slug Hunter. This fight is all over the place. Hanzo does go down. Garrosh to fall. So will Sylvanas. So is the Leoric. And that is a solid pentakill for the side of Peasants Anonymous, who rushed through the mid lane with the Web Weaver. And this is going to be game number 2. The first best of 3 of the day. Going to be won by Peasants Anonymous in a very dominant fashion, back-to-back games that are just about 12 minutes. Will they delay for another 18 seconds so we have 12 minutes on the dot? Nazebo is actually trolling his own team by zombie-walling them all together, but still, a speed run of our first best of 3 of the day, and Peasants Anonymous will move on to our Sunday best of 3 semifinals. GG, well played. A phenomenal game here, Justing.
Yeah, Peasants Anonymous really just flexing kind of on all fronts. The early game was a little bit shaky on terms of macro, especially with them having the extra wave clear advantage. The Team No Name early game did a good job of trying to get camps and sort of balance out, but they were just getting picked left and right, mostly due to Tremor on Stitches, just completely tearing it up. He had a really, really stellar performance on Stitches, and everyone in the follow-up was there every time he hit the hooks. Kelsier was there with the gravity lapse from Kael'thas, and Slug Hunter was there to save him if anything ever went wrong. Like, just overall, just really, really well played from Peasants Anonymous. All of them played really, really well.
Yeah, I'm excited to see Peasants Anonymous tomorrow in that semifinals game. I don't know who they'll go up against. We'll find out a little bit later today, as we will have to, have to get to that best of 3 eventually. But this was a really, really great first best of 3 to kick off today, and I think it shows a lot of skill coming out from the side of Peasants Anonymous. I want to give credit where credit's due. No Name did play a very good game. They had a lot of really great moments, but the issue is it's just so much control, so much CC, and I also have to say, so much communication coming out from the side of Peasants Anonymous. Those games went so fast, we were going to jump into comms, and I was like, when's the optimal time? But it was just kill after kill, and by the time it was like, oh, we can jump into comms, the game's already over. So we will get into comms at some point today, but either way, Peasants Anonymous, they are firing on all cylinders, and I'm excited to see what will happen with them tomorrow and who they'll be going up against. But right now, we're going to take a small little break. We're going to get our next best of 3 ready for you all at home. And I was about to be like, in that break, go ahead and, hit exclamation something. But I don't actually have anything for you to hit in the break. So why don't you guys all go grab yourself a glass of water, and we'll be back in a few minutes with our next best of 3. Don't go anywhere. This is the HeroesCCL free agent tournament presented by Wisdom. Welcome back to HeroesCCL Free Agent Tournament presented by Wisdom. I'm still Bahamut, joined by our lovely Season 3 analyst, Justing, who will be with us today and tomorrow for all of our HeroesCCL Free Agent action. Justing, in that break, how was your break? How was your break? What'd you get up to?
I had a great break. I got to pet my cat, and let's bring you back into the room, because she threw a little bit of a temper tantrum right as the broadcast started, but now she's back in here. I've been reunited with my kitten, and I'm all ready to get into the next games.
Oh, we're gonna have to find out some way to incentivize getting her on stream from chat at some point this season, because I'm sure they all are already screaming in chat that they want you to bring the cat on screen. But we'll have to get to that eventually, because right now we got to get you up to date on what's happened so far today with our HeroesCCL free agent matches. We just saw Peasants Anonymous take a solid and a very quick 2-0 up against No Name, and we're getting ready for Clown Fiesta versus Forgot to Warm Up. These are two teams that, Justin, neither of us have gotten a chance to watch at all, because yesterday, Forgot to Warm Up actually had the opposing team forfeit against them. So we don't know really what the playstyle is from either of these sides, and based off the names, which we will get to in a little bit here, which team are you kind of excited more for? Forgot to Warm Up or Clown Fiesta?
I've definitely seen more of the members of Forgot to Warm Up, at least recently. Mm-hmm. There's quite a few players on that team that I recognize. Pretty much, I recognize basically all the players on that team. And on the blue team, I've seen Squirrel and a couple of the others, but not so much recently. They're not as ingrained in the other things like NGS and the other amateur leagues, at least not that I've seen. But it should be a relatively balanced matchup, but I would be a little bit weighted in favor of Forgot to Warm Up.
Well, let's actually break down those rosters a little bit further for everyone at home. We're excitedly already talking about these, and I was just told that we got them ready to go. So here we have Clown Fiesta. We got Pickles of Death, which is a phenomenal name. Chakram, we've got Squirrel, Iron, and Aether. Who are we going to see on the side of Forgot to Warm Up?
On Forgot to Warm Up, we have Breakwood, Hashmer, JTR, Epic Player, and Katie? JD?
Zadie. I know that one.
Sadie.
That one. That
Sadie.
one. That one's a tricky one. I know that one. That one always gets me too when I
Yeah,
look at it.
I've
But
seen her around, but I didn't know that
mhm,
how they pronounce that.
a great healer, and I've
Sadie.
seen her quite a bit in, as you were mentioning, the Grassroots League, Heroes Lounge, NGS, all that stuff. But from all those names, anything that pops out to you, like JTR, anything like that? Who's an
Yep.
exciting player for you?
Yeah, so I could talk about any of these players, but I know from my experience of playing with Funds in particular, he knew JTR quite well, and he always had just the utmost highest praise for JTR as a player. So that's someone who I haven't gotten to watch him too much playing, but based on what I've heard from Funds, and I trust his opinion from back when we played in Wildheart in Season 1, that's a player that I'm really going to be interested in seeing and seeing how he can, if he can put up like a really stellar performance, because I've heard nothing but good things about him.
When we look at these two rosters, there's that little kind of roll note next to a lot of the player names for tank and solo lane and everything. When we look at Forgot to Warm Up, it's one of the few teams, and if I actually skim at this really quickly, it's one of the only teams that actually are running a double flex. Is this something that's strong for a team, or can this actually be a hindrance to have such a wide hero pool variety on the side of Forgot to Warm Up?
I think it definitely depends on maybe the reason that they're listed as flex, because sometimes it can mean that a player is a little too cocky. Maybe you primarily
Ooh.
play it ranged, but you're saying that you can flex, which I think that's rarely the case, and I don't think that's necessarily the case here. But I do think that if you are really confident as a flex player, that is a really good thing, because that means that you can see through the eyes of the opposing role, and it kind of gives you more. If you're in a fight against someone and you've played their character a bunch, like if you're a Hanzo main and you go up against Hanzo, for example, you're in his head. Like you know what the Hanzo's thinking and doing, and so I think because of that, the flex role, it's definitely a good thing. I think to be able to have that experience.
I agree with you. It's like I have a good friend that plays a lot of Samuro, and as he always tells me, just kill the right clone forehead. But it's one of those things that you play the hero enough, and you're so ingrained with the playstyle that you actually kind of figure out, okay, I know what this Hanzo, this Samuro, this Genji, whatever that what their priority is going to be. When it comes to the playstyle, or even just the juking and jiving and just kind of dipping and diving and getting away from other players. So it's really exciting as we're getting ready for our second best of three of the day. And I agree with you. Forgot to Warm Up is a team that kind of there's a lot of names that I know, and so I'm kind of like leaning a little bit into that team. But Clown Fiesta, I mean, it's a great name, and Squirrel is a superb healer. I've seen them in many different leagues and stuff like that. So right now, for anyone at home that's wondering what's kind of happening with the broadcast, we are getting a roster substitute in for one of the teams, and so we'll get you up to date on that in just a little bit once that is ready to go. But just to kind of keep you up to date, what's happening and while we're waiting to get into this next best of three series here. And maybe maybe some of the players were like, holy crap, that first best of three, that was a bit of a speed run. We're a little bit of ahead of schedule, so might have caught a player or two off guard with that one. But as we get ready for this Justing, I want to circle back to, let's talk about map draft. What's a good map to start out a best of three? I love Battlefield or Infernal Shrines. Do you think there's a better place to kind of trick or take the enemy to?
No, I think that Infernal Shrines and Volskaya would definitely be my favorite to bring teams to, especially in a situation like this where you have maybe some teams that aren't as familiar playing together, and you have players who are trying to show off their teamfight mechanics. I think maps like that, where the objective is really clear and focused, so you know that there's just going to be a team fight around this area, I think that's definitely the best place to look to go in a tournament like this.
Well, as we have just been talking about drafts, or excuse me, maps, we have the map ready to go, so we can find out where we're heading to for map number one in the second best of three. And it's going to be Infernal Shrines, chosen by Clown Fiesta, with the members of Forgot to Warm Up banning out Battlefield of Eternity and Dragonshire, and Clown Fiesta banning out Garden of Terror and Tomb. Man, Justin, I can't believe we have so much Garden of Terror banned. Why would people ban such a great map like Garden of Terror?
That's a great question. Garden of Terror is easily one of the most fun maps to play as well as watch. So it's just a darn shame that that no one's going there. But also, you never really want to find out that the enemy has a Vikings player after you're already halfway through the draft of Garden of Terror, because that's always a bad time having to face them on that map.
You recently put out a tier list, and where would you kind of rank the Vikings within the heroes of Heroes the Storm?
I think the Vikings are the literal most broken thing in the entire game. I think the main issue for me with Vikings is that the they were balanced before, back in the old days, around getting your team an XP advantage, but then you being sort of permanently forced into pseudo 4v5s, but you had a talent advantage. So you'd be like 16 versus 13, and you could, team fight basically 4v5, and you had to weigh that. But now it feels like they're so strong in late game team fights that they scale so hard that it sort of feels like you get that XP advantage and you get just really, really powerful team fighting characters. The issue is obviously mainly that they're very, very hard to play. I wouldn't. If I was able to play them, then maybe we would have seen tank Vikings, but it's not for me. It's too hard.
Someone out there, please give us some tank Vikings. I want to see it. But no, I agree with you. My chat loves to make me suffer on that for about 20 minutes and then usually lose the game. But either way, there's a lot of different heroes we could be discussing, and we can actually continue to do that while we're getting ready for this Infernal Shrines map. As a reminder for anyone at home, we do have a little bit of a player swap happening right now, so they're just making sure that everything is ready to go and is everyone's good and logged in, and we're all good to go here because we do have to wait a couple more minutes, I think, for this. Actually, I think I'm incorrect on that. I think we're about to get into the draft in just a second. So while we are getting ready for this Infernal Shrines map, I want to ask you, what's your priority? Like when you play Infernal Shrines, what do you like to draft? Are you like, oh, I got to play this tank, or I got to play Gul'dan, or I got to play maybe some Mephisto?
Yeah, so Mephisto in particular, I don't know how the team's priorities are on them, are on Mephisto, but I would say this is Mephisto's just best map by a pretty big amount. And I think Mephisto is playable on every map, but this is by far, I think, their best map. Usually teams don't prioritize it early on, but I think that in time that will probably change. It's very, very, very difficult to get onto the shrine without just getting completely obliterated by the area of effect damage coming out from Mephisto and the resets that come from that. Other things that are good that could be prioritized is this is a map where you could potentially play Alexstrasza. It's not super likely, but this is one of her like niche maps. Diablo also gets added value on the shrine. There's a lot of, as long as you have enough shrine clear, you can kind of draft whatever you want besides that. Tychus is obviously also really good with the Odin. There's a lot of characters, basically any team fight characters or any characters that have a lot of zone control and shrine control are just really high priorities here. The globals being banned out right away is a little bit interesting. Wow.
All the globals, literally.
Yeah.
So whatever, we're gonna get rid of Abathur next too. Is just like he's technically global with his burrow, but I agree. Like there's so much reset potential for the Mephisto. There's a lot of really good shrine heroes. Chromie's actually something that comes to mind that isn't too prioritized. Chromie Varian, I think, on this map can be really, really devastating with taunt plus Chromie's burst ability. But as we have a first pick Junkrat, I do want to note for everyone at home, we talked about JTR and all of everything. Unfortunately, JTR is going to be subbed out by Nano.
I cursed it.
I know, we both did. We were both like, before we were getting this, it's like, who are we going to talk about? What are we going to focus on? JTR. And I was like, I know JTR. Heck yeah.
And he's gone.
Well, he's gone. So, but I do want to point this out. So we have this Junkrat, and I've seen a lot of adaptation around Junkrat by grabbing stitches and stuff. And so you hook and you have the trap. Do you think that's a possibility for Infernal Shrines, or Stitches is just not that great for this map?
Stitches is pickable on shrines, but it's definitely his worst map because all the little skeletons get in the way of the hooks. There's Junkrat on this map though is really, really strong.
Yeah.
So that's like that's an easy first pick for them, and just based off of that alone, it's going to be really tough, I think, for. And Vala, I don't really like Vala comps too much on this map because you're kind of forced to fight in a pretty small area where Vala doesn't necessarily thrive. She sort of prefers that open space where she can chase people down with her move speed and just play like the long sustaining fights. And while she can keep her hatred up on the shrine minions, it's kind of like a tight corridor. And then you have Malfruits and potentially Twilight Dream, and then also Hogger who can bounce around inside the shrine. So far, I'd say that the team with the Junkrat looks much stronger to me so far.
I would absolutely agree with you. I mean, you also have the follow-up from Malfurion on top of that with the roots, and Emerald Dreams at level 1 for just that extra CC on top of the initial root. It's like 3 seconds of total CC from a Malfurion, from a level 1 talent. It's just so difficult to deal with. I'm actually kind of hoping to see a Diablo ban from the side of Forgot to Warm Up. I feel like both these teams could really use a Diablo or play well with it, but I think Clown Fiesta would do great with a Diablo to play into the Anduin as well. Going to be an Uther ban, and I'm thinking back, Uther plus Kerrigan on this map is terrifying, and in the past you played an Ana with that, but you could still throw in an Anduin, and that would work as well. But What are we going to be seeing here? Is this the tank priority? Is this going to be a Garrosh, a Nubrak? What are you thinking here?
I would hope to see. Well, there's the Leoric. I would hope to see. Okay, well, I mean, can't get mad at Lunara for sure. They're building a comp where they're just going to have a lot of damage and just sustainability, just overall. They're just playing for numbers basically. Like they're lacking in CC pretty heavily, but they're trying to make up for that by having just a lot of like good sustained damage. One thing that I'm a little bit concerned of is with the Uther being banned. I think that was a pretty good ban because keeping their squishy members like Vala alive is going to be really difficult with just one Anduin. So it's going to be a lot for Anduin. Ooh, that's weird. I kind of would have preferred maybe that they would have just stacked more crowd control since they already have so much, but it's not bad. Like Tyrael Greymane on the Shrine it can never be really bad.
I feel like this is a dumb question, but I'm still going to ask it. Do you go Judgment here? I know Sanctification's hard to coordinate sometimes, and I feel like Greymane plus Tyrael, you could just dive onto someone with that, but maybe not?
It's probably Sanctification. Sanctification was always sort of a... I mean, we'll see. They do have the Anduin pull, which I guess that could be some interesting interactions there with like pulling the Judgment even further, depending on how you time it. And I would expect it's Sanctification, especially because they're against Lunara on the other side, and that's always been to be able to cleanse all the poison. That's sort of been like an infamous matchup. And I am hoping to see that Tyrael goes Holy Ground, because I think that's very, very undervalued on this map.
I think Tyrael Holy Ground is one of those that we could actually kind of bake it into his kit, kind of like how we have the Muradin with the Stormbolt or Stitches with his hook range increase, or even now the Vigorous Vault from Maiev at level 20. I feel like Tyrael could benefit from just having that baked into his kit at like level 13 or 16. I think that'd be really, really cool because it's such a strong talent, and I feel like it also is very strong for Tyrael just as a character in general. But either way, let's talk about the draft, and who do you think is actually going to be winning out this map on Infernal Shrines as we're loading in?
I think Forgot to Warm Up has a better draft for the map. They just have a lot of zone control and tools to win the shrine very safely. With that in mind, they don't... I mean, they also have Junkrat, who has anti-siege, but then they have Greymane as well, who can solo the shrine. So I really think that I prefer Forgot to Warm Up's comp overall. That being said, if Anduin and Vala or Lunara, if any of them can have really stellar standout performances and they can play really mechanically well, either one of them can really carry the game.
Well, we're going to find out what's going to happen here because we got Clown Fiesta in the blue, Aether on the Leoric, Aaron on the Vala, Chakram on the Lunara, Pickles of Death on the Garrosh, and Squirrel on the Anduin.
And on Forgot to Warm Up, we have Burdickwood playing the Greymane, Hashmer playing Tyrael, Nano will be subbing in for JTR playing the Junkrat, Epic Player on Hogger, and Zadie playing the Malf.
As we get into the mid lane, we check out those level 1s, and it is going to be Fire at Will from the Vala, building out those W stacks or the multi-shot stacks, and once she hits 20 of those, she has a big jump in damage to 80, but either way, Breakwood going to get thrown around, uses the Razor Swipe to back away, but the Chastise from Anduin locks down Breakwood long enough, and Lunara able to get the last auto, First Blood, over to the side of Clown Fiesta.
And this was sort of my complaint with the Tyrael pick. I don't think it's like a terrible pick on the Shrine, but in these types of skirmishes, as another toss onto Nano there. In these types of skirmishes, the Tyrael doesn't really provide too much other than what he needs to be doing is he needs to sort of position in a way that either he's safe to get thrown without his Q out or just throw his Q out, and when the Garrosh steps up, he needs to be the one to tank the toss from the Garrosh. The Tyrael is pretty good in that matchup against the Garrosh, but he needs to... I'd like to see him make an active effort to intercept those tosses for his teammates, because otherwise the Garrosh is going to have a bit of a field day.
Seems like he already is controlling the map quite well. Our first objective phase will be Mortar Punisher in the top lane. Pickles of Death is going to kind of anchor for the friendly team, finds a toss onto Zadie, big damage available, and that's going to be another kill for Lunara, and that is a more experience as well going over to the side of Clown Fiesta.
So Pickles of Death is playing really well. There he sort of manipulated the vision. So Tyrael walked into that middle brush and saw that, oh, there's no Garrosh. So he sort of assumed that the coast was clear, but the coast was definitely not clear because he was in that little far right brush that no one saw. So Zadie kind of got caught off guard by that. Sort of a lack of information, but not only a lack of information, sort of an assumption of information sort of thing. Like that was a good use of playing around the vision.
And I was actually about to ask you, because we're just in rotations right now getting ready for the first objective. I want to talk about what you just said, manipulating vision. Is this something that tank players should be consistently doing, or is this just the anchoring of Pickles of Death and just how they're sitting in these bushes? I want to get more information from your brain on this, because it's an interesting topic.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the most important things and one of the least straightforward things that you do as a tank player. The way that you can kind of play mind games with the enemy tank player, if both tank players are, like you can see here that Hashmere is just sitting in that brush, the way that the tank's job is sort of to control the space that is safe for their team and then relay that information at all points in the game, since the tanks are usually sort of doing that, where you're out and then I would be relaying to my team in a situation like this, like, okay, the last time I saw their team rotate through here was this long ago, they can only be from like this area to this area, and then you're kind of controlling sort of sectors of the map and relaying that information to your team. So there it was a bit of a lapse where the Garrosh kind of got the better, like the upper hand. And there again, he's been off map for long enough that no one really expected him to be that far forward on the right hand side. But
I know, I like it. Yeah. Yeah, because I was watching Pickles sit in that bush, and I agree with you, because the members of Forgot to Warm Up started stepping further into the lane, and I think that was the opportunity that Pickles was looking for, to be able to jump onto Zadie or Breakwood once again. And
you love Pickles, to see the Hogger too.
Yeah, this is a really good bounce. This is a bounce that we rarely see on this top.
I wouldn't try it.
this isn't easy to try and get like this infinite. Grubby talks about this all the time in previous seasons, and this is looking like a good control for Forgot to Warm Up around this objective. Pickles of Death may be trying to step into Zadie right now, and actually will be stepping right into Zadie's face, finds the ground breaker, the toss, everything, and Zadie's bursted down. 29 skeletal defenders over the side of Forgot to Warm Up, but this red team, are forced off the point. No toss available for Garrosh for 3 seconds.
Again, just Pickles of Death is really playing well on the Garrosh. He's really controlling his space well, and yeah, just sort of he's just doing a really good job on Garrosh. Knows what he has to do on Garrosh, and this should be another kill onto Epic, actually. Just out of position, just going a little too far forward there. We'll see if the red team's able to steal enough of the Shrine Defenders with just Junkrat poke, and we'll see how desperate they get to try to win this objective. It's not the end of the world to give it up.
It's a mortar punisher. It's the first one of the game. Nano tossed, gonna go down. And oh my god, I thought the Total Mayhem, the trait from Junkrat, I thought that actually just stole away the Punisher, because I saw one skeletal defender and I didn't see the total. But either way, Mortar Punisher available for the side of Clown Fiesta through the top lane, and that's a big jump over onto Wash.
Hashmere made a bit of a mechanical error there. He was trying to bait the Punisher over by throwing his Q out, and then you need to actually, he needed to use his E to hit the Immortal and then time it so that the Immortal jumps when he uses his Q. So he actually Q'd back and then didn't have it. So he actually could have possibly went down there to Pickles of Death if he would have expected that. So a bit of a mechanical misplay by the Tyrael.
And this is a fort to go down in the top lane. This is not a common thing, in my opinion, to see from a first objective phase on Infernal Shrines. There's a lot of really good push potential being utilized by Clown Fiesta, as we do have those 10 talent tiers achieved by our blue team. A solid level lead with 5-0 in kills. And as we get these 10 talent tiers, anything that you're expecting, anything you're excited about here, Justing, or is it pretty much just the standards?
Taunt coming out from Garrosh is a little bit weird now, I guess. I've noticed a lot of people are going into the Decimate, which I think is good at 20, but I think with their type of composition, I do like the Taunt. I think Taunt's always still fine. Okay. And he's playing it well. Rain on Bala that's the one that I'd say is like the other like real big decision maker. I think the rest are all pretty standard, where you could make an argument for either one, only really for Vala.
I do like the pickup of the Light Bomb from Anduin and the Leaping Strikes from Lunara, because I feel like Lunara could utilize the Leaping Strikes with Light Bomb to try and jump into the backline that allows Garrosh and Vala to kind of step up and either CC or provide a lot of damage, because Garrosh has that taunt, as you mentioned, and Rain of Vengeance from Vala is a nice either setup CC or follow-up CC to the Warlord's Challenge, as Hashmere is able to get the Druid's Might out of there.
Ooh, Breakwood did use W there on Greymane. Gonna see, the blue team just instantly punishes, knowing that the red team doesn't really want to fight back in this situation. Tyrael's Q is down, as well as Greymane using their W. Garrosh is really owning this game.
Breakwood drops a curse bullet into Pickles of Death, who I think was nearly full HP, so that's 35% of Pickles of Death HP, because it's of current, and just Pickles is like, cool, I'm good. It's a Greymane. I have physical armor. Greymane has physical attacks. This is no big deal. And we're going to be seeing hard siege through the bottom lane with this wave. Great call from the side of Clown Fiesta, who are running through map number 1 in a very controlled fashion.
Yeah, the blue team is really impressing me. They're doing a good job of fighting off the shrine, and the fact that they managed to win the shrine as well, just by getting sort of a clever little pick, just really, really well played by the blue team. They seem to be very, very coordinated. I'm curious if these players have maybe more experience playing together than I know of, because they actually forced the Hortipult out too. Just Echoes of Death is just really doing well, and he feels very safe with Squirrel behind him at all times. Like, those two appear to have really, really good synergy. They're just always together.
All right, Justing, I promised it after the last series, and I'm not going to forget. You want to jump to some comms here? You want to jump into Clown Fiesta and check out how they're vibing?
Yeah, let's do it.
Into Clown Fiesta we go.
I was baiting out Sanked early, but we can get picks too. That'd be good.
I'll just try to taunt Tyrael.
Yeah, we have 13, so they should be giving this, but
yeah, they're going bot.
I think we need to center one people.
do you want me to go Bob?
No, Leo's got it. Leo's got it.
Wasn't sure if we wanted to send two.
Let's focus on objective. It's free. Maybe one top.
When we hit 55, check around. Let's the push top maybe.
Yeah, I got it.
Lost,
Don't want to start objective yet.
Go. I'll finish when we need to. I'm starting in a second.
Yep, good to go.
Not as explosive as I was expecting, Justing, but at the same time, there was that split from the side of Forgot to warm up into bottom lane to try and find some sort of counter pressure, not even responded to really from the members of Clown Fiesta. We get into this next objective phase, and was there anything you took away from those comms?
Just another day at work for the blue team, really. Their comms were calm, cool, and collected. None of them were breaking a sweat or anything. Just all really, really calm. It's also nice to see that it's not that this hasn't been the work of just one player micromanaging everyone or anything like that. They're all just kind of intuitively on the same page, which is really good to see. It's just good game sense from each player coming together.
I would absolutely agree. It's nice to hear that there's not just one dominant voice. There's supplemental information coming out from the solo laner, from the ranged assassin, from the main tank, from the healer as well. So really good communication coming out from that team, and maybe we'll check into them a little bit later into a different map or something like that. But right now, Leark pushes up top, camp to be grabbed in bottom, and 16 talent here on the horizon for Clown Fiesta.
I'd really hope to see a fight on either even talent tiers at 20 or maybe 16 to 18 if we can get a fight like that on a shrine. I'm not sure if they'll be able to get a shrine fight with 16s for Team Forgot to warm up, but I'd really like to see just a fair 5v5 on a shrine and see if the red team can, because that's where the red team's comp should really shine. They're kind of just getting picked off in the rotations, and I'd like to see how an actual 5v5 plays out, especially the later in the game that we get.
I'm trying to do the mental math really quickly. I think we're not too far off from another Punisher, which is going to be a Frozen Punisher in the bottom lane, so that's why we're seeing the priority from Pickles of Death and friends to be able to soft push this bottom lane. If the Punishers grab, this could threaten straight on to keep, but this will be a little disengaged as the wave does get cleared out, and maybe there is the opportunity for that equal talent tier fight. We could see a slow kind of turtle for experience on the side of Forgot to warm up. And realistically, Justing, I think that's the only option they have is they have to just wait for the waves to crash into the closest structure that Forgot to warm up has.
Yeah, I'd like to see the blue team look to force with their 16 because they have the Lunara and the Bala, which are both really, really slippery, especially into something like a Tyrael as their main tank that they're against. There's very, very little lockdown potential on the red team, so they can kind of flex on them with their 16 advantage. Let's just see if they overextend, though, because that would be the worst case scenario. This is getting a 16 advantage, or being able to get a 16 fight for this shrine for the red team is very, very, very crucial, though. And we'll get to see an actual even talent 5v5 team fight, and that will be very important to see which team comes out.
That is. I mean, I was thinking that the shrine was going to pop up way sooner than I had expected, but no, we get 16s for both sides, and I don't think there's a realm where 20s pop up unless somehow, some way, Clown Fiesta just force a massive 5v5 and get a pentakill in that. But here comes that Frozen Punisher for bottom lane. Pickles of Death is going to scout out Hashmer in the bush, and we'll back away. No team fight to be had as both teams grab their Fallen Shaman camp a little bit late on the side of Clown Fiesta. It doesn't seem like it's going to be too late for them as they do have Vala and Lunara on this point. Lunara has quite good damage as well as that Vala. Squirrel just healing up a little bit here. But now, we get ready for the shrine here, Justing. I'm excited about this. Expectations?
I'm hoping... So, the proper play might really be for the blue team to give this, but I'm hoping to see them fight.
They're stepping in.
Yeah, that's good. Well, it might not be good macro play, but it's good for us to watch at home.
Oh, yeah. I mean, hey,
yeah.
just entertain me. Ooh, but Pickles of Death gets hit with the Leap of Faith. There's going to be Aether having to Wraith Walk out of there. Hogger has a beautiful bounce around this objective phase, and this is going to be quickly gained by Forgot to Warm Up. I don't think that there's anything Clown Fiesta can do to stop just the literal momentum of Epic Player on this Hogger getting those infinite bounces.
Yeah, it's good to see the red team understanding what their composition does. Like maybe they didn't really recognize it as much in the early game, like how disadvantaged they'd be in the rotations. Oh, but in actual, just like quick engage, full just negates it. It's nice to see them that they're able to, when they get their position that their comp is good at, just fighting 5v5 on the shrine, that they're able to push that to its full advantage, and they just basically shut them out of the shrine. And we'll see if they feel desperate enough though to maybe overextend forcing here bot or not.
Frozen Punisher does siege very well, locking down the towers for, I believe, 3 seconds or so, maybe a little bit less than that, and the Punisher gets baited over the wall. A lot of damage goes into said Frozen Punisher, dropping quite quickly, and it looks, to me, like a keep front gate to go down. Leaping strikes from Lunara to chase into this. Aether's really deep into the enemy team, does have some slows onto Breakwood, Concussion Mine to push Aether kind of still further down the lane. Lunara is just chasing into this, and is very far from the friendly team, and will back away. But I do want to note this one thing. During this entire engagement, the Orc had snuck to top lane, cleared out the opposing side Fallen Shaman camp, and their own, on the side of Clown Fiesta, will get a keep front gate of their own. I love the split pressure from Leorc in this game so far. Our Leorc player is doing a phenomenal job. Aether on said Leorc.
Yeah, it was smart. You could tell the blue team was aware that they had their knights pushing top and that they had the macro advantage in that situation, because otherwise there was no real reason for them to run out at the red team like they did. So it was nice to see that they were aware of that, and they were trying to kind of bait the red team into staying bottom a little bit longer than they needed to. The red team was also cognizant enough to recognize that's what was happening and going back and clearing top, so both teams relatively even on that. I really, really like that the blue team with their level 20 advantage is just forcing it, trying to not give them a chance to hit level 20. I really like that a lot.
You had mentioned this earlier in the game when it was 16 to 15 or so, and how Clown Fiesta was just stepping up and utilizing their talent to your advantage to force something in the lane, and they have the Impaler camp, they've got the wave behind them, and this Vala with the Farflight Quiver at level 20, I believe, if my math is correct on this, the baseline takes her to like 7.7, but if she's at max hatred, it's like 8.25, I think is actually what her range increases to. And that's like the second farthest in the game. I think Sergeant Hammer baseline is like 13 something. So either way, it's a little range thing. And with Vala's range being that far, she actually outranges Keeps by 0.25 range. So literally Vala can free siege at full hatred without taking any sort of structural damage. I just think it's a little cool.
That's a really good
right
holy
there.
round.
Oh, very good. But Aaron gets hit with the Leap of
hey.
Faith. Huge
Poor man,
Entomb! Massive Rain of Vengeance. Big damage coming out. Hogger goes down first. Hashmer trying to back away, and it's a single kill. But another engagement from Pickles of Death. He throws Breakwood, but the throw is not good, and that's going to be a counter kill into Garrosh. Riptire comes through from Junkrat. Doesn't have the level 20 extra oomph for a reset. Pokes at the enemy team, but the keep, I do want to note here, does go down in mid lane. Our next Punisher Justing, that's border in mid.
Yeah, that was. I really, really liked the macro play coming out from Clown Fiesta there, where they took the bot keep and then they rotated mid and took the mid keep. They did end up getting a little too antsy there, I think, mostly on the Garrosh. That was I would say like the first like real mistake I've seen coming out from Pickles of Death. Kind of overextended there and sort of messed up the angle on the toss. But it was a good counter by the red team too, and this is going to be interesting. The only real advantage the blue team's going to have here is that tap mid. I don't think this invade is going to be a real good place for the red team to fight, so we'll see if they actually go for it.
Hashmer comes in with these the holy ground and steals the camp away. Does end up going down. Ooh. Steals a little bit of time off that death timer with their trait. 10% per enemy hero hit with your explosion when you die. But now we get into our next Punisher of the game. Mortar Punisher for mid lane. And the members of Clown Fiesta want to burn through this quickly. I think, and I kind of heard it in your voice there, Justing, that Tyrael death is a bit of a rough one.
Yeah, that was pretty devastating because this was their last real chance to have a fair 5v5 in an actual... in their comps, like the way that their comp wants to play the game, which is fighting on the shrine. So now they're kind of forced into a 4v5 on the shrine, which is a lot worse for them.
Light Bomb, Warlord's Challenge, a lot utilized by Garrosh, even the Indomitable, to make sure he could just lock down said Greymane. Riptire after Riptire for Junkrat. Now, Junkrat just has to hit 3 enemy heroes with 1 Riptire, and that gets you the full reset. 25 seconds off the 75, but either way, huge Entomb with the Buried Alive. Aether's actually thrown into all of this. Malfurion goes down, Hogger goes down, and that is, all in all, a solid pentakill with Tyrael just now coming back. And as I said in the first best of 3 here, Justing, you got yourself 4 kills. It's a Tyrael to defend. You don't need the Punisher. You don't need to clear top lane. You don't need those Impaler camps. You got enough damage, go core, end the game. And I think that's exactly what the members of Clown Fiesta will be doing here.
Yeah, really, this should be an easy core. I don't think Hashmer is going to have it in him to stop this, but I really was impressed with the blue team's macro decision making, as well as just their knowledge of, like, their individual understanding of what their win condition was and what the enemy condition was, and taking advantage of that. I think they really did. They did a great job, honestly.
I loved how Clown Fiesta played in that game. There was that one moment where there was some shining light for the members of Forgot to Warm Up, where they had that bottom lane Punisher pushing through, but it just didn't work out. And I don't know if it was lacking in damage, lacking in effective damage. What's your breakdown here, Justing? What could have the red team Forgot to Warm Up done here to maybe roll things back, or was this game just won out with just the intensity of our blue team? Sorry, Clown Fiesta.
I think Clown Fiesta had a much better grasp on what their win condition was as opposed to the enemy's win condition, because I'd say that the blue team has a strong rotation with the Garrosh into the Tyrael, because Tyrael doesn't really have any pressure that he can apply onto things like Vala and Lunara, which that was kind of why, that was one of the main reasons why I really wasn't a big fan of the Tyrael pick in general in the draft. Is you have characters like Vala and Lunara that are really slippery, and they're very, very, like, they're hyper carries that you need to lock down, and a character like Tyrael just really, really struggles to do that. So I didn't really like the Tyrael too much, but the blue team really, really understood that they wanted to fight off of the shrine, and that it would be near impossible to win a 5v5 on the shrine. If every fight was just only on the shrine, I think the red team would have taken it like they did on the bot shrine every single time. But Pickles of Death had really, really nice ways to play around vision to get picks around the top shrine. And then just in general, they were winning on macro on all fronts outside of the shrines. So the red team really just needed to recognize that, hey, our comp only wins shrines, just we basically hide in our base when there's no shrine spawning, and that would be sort of like the ideal situation for the red team. So just better understanding by the blue team, I think.
I loved the Garrosh play from Pickles of Death. I do have to say, though, the only death on the friendly team for Clown Fiesta was Garrosh. So I'm just saying, maybe feeding, maybe that's not your main tank. But jumping back into the conversation about Forgot to Warm Up's draft, and I don't want to like sit here and be like, the Tyrael was the issue, and if they drafted something else, they would have won it. But do you think, like, an Anubarak or a Diablo, do you think that would have been something a little stronger? Could that have actually been the turning potential for a tank player?
Yeah, I think that the Tyrael definitely could have worked if everyone was on the same page, that they needed to play very, very, very safe in the rotations. Anytime there wasn't a shrine spawning, then I think the Tyrael could have worked out. And maybe Judgment really was the play. It's just that you get the Judgment, and then that sort of is traded for Anduin pull, and then that might be the end of that. So even that might not have been enough. So definitely having a stun tank like a Nubarak would have been a major improvement for that. But that being said, I do think they still could have won just by exclusively playing the shrines with the Tyrael, because Tyrael is really, really strong for that specifically. But just kind of it was one of two things. Either they pick a tank that can punish and they fight how they did, or they stick with the Tyrael and just make sure that they're really only playing for those shrine fights.
I mean, I feel validated. You said maybe Judgment was the option. So I'm
Yeah.
validated. I am absolutely correct in my opinions and thoughts on this, but we are getting ready for our next map here in just a few minutes. And it was a really good game, number one. And I don't think that the members of Forgot to Warm Up are out of this. I don't think it's going to be, I hope it's not going to be a quick 2-0. I think they can bounce back. The strategy was pretty good. I just think that there was a little bit of just miscommunication, misplay within the draft and the actual execution of said draft from Forgot to Warm Up. On the opposing side, let's talk about Clown Fiesta. Let's talk about what worked for them, because this Vala had she had less damage than the Junkrat, but we've talked about this in previous broadcasts, in different seasons of CCL, and even in free agent tournaments. Effective damage versus damage dealt. Junkrat had nearly 10,000 more damage than Vala, but Vala had 100% kill participation, died 0 times, had 6 kills for the friendly team, and I feel like that effective damage from Vala was just so on point consistently. Do you think going into map number 2, they need to change much up on the side of Clown Fiesta, or like, I just want to get your thoughts on like the draft mentality going into the next game. Do you think there needs to be a change, or can they kind of run something similar on the side of Clown Fiesta?
I'd say that what Clown Fiesta played in that game, you could pretty much play on any map, that style, just the double ranged. But going against, I brought this up a lot, but going against the Tyrael in particular,
Sure.
it's not a CC frontline, so there's not a lot of punish for those types of characters, for Valas and Lunaras. So I think it's less about, I don't think they need to change anything up, but things can definitely become a lot more difficult if they go up against something like a Diablo that can just, point and click with his QE to just, charge you and pick up your Vala and put her back down. Stuff like that, that's a lot more threatening for them. But honestly, overall, Pickles of Death played very, very well on Garrosh. He manipulated vision very well. Just really, really good coming out from him. The Vala and the Lunara both played well. They played safe, but they didn't necessarily have the hardest game to play, actually, since they didn't have to take many shrine fights. Squirrel did a really good job of saving everyone. Any single time anyone was in danger, pretty much, there was just an instant pull. So Squirrel really played well. The Vala was pretty good at following up too with the Reigns, with her ultimate. And Aether had gigantic entombs when it mattered. So pretty much everyone just played really, really well on Clown Fiesta. I was really impressed.
Well, we got our second map ready to go for you all at home, and we'll find out where we're going to head to. And Justing, what map is it going to be?
We're going to be heading to Towers of Doom.
Oh, this is a good map for Mephistos and the Lost Vikings. And I agree though. But I personally, I would love to see one of those two heroes, if not both, be picked up for this map, because Towers of Doom, I don't know about you, Justing, but for me as a caster player, this is my favorite map. Easily top 3 for Heroes of Storm, if not my literal favorite map to play, watch, cast, everything. I don't know about you. You got a preference on the map here?
It's in my top 3 for sure. It's a little weird, but you can have some of the most exciting games on Towers of Doom for sure. It's definitely the most unique map, I'd say, and it's a well-designed map. It's an interesting concept.
The one thing that I always take away, and I always like to bring up here, is that Towers of Doom is one of those maps that it's not over till the core is 0. And I know that's like every map's like that, Bahamut, but a great example was yesterday. There was a team, it was like 10-2 or something like that in core HP, and it came down to literally 1 altar phase, and it was 1-2 in core HP. Like Towers of Doom, it's just such a great map when it comes to storyline, the fights, everything. So we're here getting ready for the draft, and let me ask you, I'm going to ask you about this for every map. What's your priority going into this? Because me personally, I love an Asmodee and I love a Falstad as well, but we're not going to see Falstad.
Yeah, Falstad, the globals are definitely a higher priority on this map than they were on Shrines. So if they were willing to ban globals on both teams on Infernal Shrines, then I would definitely be expecting the same on Towers of Doom. I'm not sure if any teams are going to be upping their Lunara priority as the event progresses. But I think that Lunara's priority is really high. She could even be a first ban. Same with Junkrat. Junkrat is also he's always good. And then, there's the other global band out. So not a huge surprise that both teams want a good, fair fight. They just want to duke it out. They don't want to lose to any macro shenanigans. That in mind, I don't know if either of these teams have dedicated Vikings players. So something to watch out for.
Trying to remember, I don't think Epic Player plays the Vikings, but I think he does play Sergeant Hammer, if memory serves me right. What I do want to note, and we do know for certainty, is JTR is back in the mix. So Nano, the substitute, is out. JT are back in and is going to be on that Junkrat, or at least for now, as we have a Sylvanas Anduin. I mean, Squirrel's Anduin was phenomenal, but I like Sylvanas for the push potential, the tower lockdown, and that control potentially through the bottom lane with those sappers. And Justing, I don't know, I just found this out recently, and it just makes a lot of sense. Mercenary Queen actually increases the explosion damage of the sappers as well into structures. It's not just the sapper autos.
Yep. Yeah, it's been that way for for quite a while. She's kind of, it's just that she was really never in the meta during the like since the rework. Now she's actually she's such a strong, like, well-rounded pick, whereas before she wasn't really getting played much. So yeah, now that she's an option, that just increases her priority even higher. When she's already just an all-around just like S tier character, she's just really strong. There's really no like bad situation to pick her. So it's kind of just the icing on the cake, as it were, that you can have her go into the bot lane on Towers of Doom and sort of run it down with the sappers.
In the past, I've seen so much priority into possession, just to be able to amplify the wave and the push potential into those bell towers to get the conversion. But it was just one of those things, a conversation. I was like, wait a minute, does that actually apply to the explosion too? And so it's just little things like that with the sappers, like Garrosh being able to use the into the fray to throw a sapper into the death zone to actually get the free shot onto the core. So it's little things like that, and Here's the Storm that are always cool to talk about. But let's break down the draft a little bit further, because we've had a lot of good development here so far within our bans and our picks. Junkrat, Mei, Lucio, a full Overwatch team so far from the side of Forgot to Warm Up. What are you expecting from either side getting into the second half of this draft?
I'm interested to see what kind of tank they opt for here, or whether they hold their tank for later on anyways. Typically, you'd want to pick your tank here so that you could pick a flex later on, but with Mei being picked, a lot of tanks don't actually have great matchups into Mei. Like Diablo, for example, might be a really good pick otherwise into like Lucio and... Oh yeah, there's nice. Diablo. So Diablo into Junkrat and Lucio is a really, really pretty good matchup, because Junkrat doesn't actually have enough damage to kill Diablo. It kind of puts a lot of pressure on them in the draft, where since Diablo and Sonya are both characters that sort of stat check you with their HP pools and their healing. So Junkrat, Lucio not having like any hard CC as a support, and Mei even having sort of like delayed CC, they need to pick some kind of percent damage here, like for like a Tychus or maybe a Leoric, maybe both. Oh, there it is. Because they're basically forced to do that because of the Sonya and Diablo pick. But by picking Sonya and Diablo this early, now that allows them to pick anything here. Like, they could go any flex pick they want. They could go like Zeratul or anything weird that they want. They're allowed to do that now. But I do like that they recognized that since they had picked Junkrat, they sort of needed that percent damage. But yeah, it was good. It's a good that they know what they're doing, and that they didn't get stat checked by the Diablo Sonya. Li Ming is interesting for sure. It's not too common.
I do like that you're reading right off the CCL script, and you nailed that Leoric and Tychus so quickly. But no, I agree with you absolutely. The percent-based damage, the control from both of them, Tychus with the grenade to poke. But on the opposing side, that Li Ming coming through right at the end, I really like the Li Ming. As always, I want to get your thoughts going into this Towers of Doom map. Who do you lean into? Because I like a lot of what I see for the side of Forgot to Warm Up, but Clown Fiesta, they're just on fire right now, in my opinion. Even the draft looks amazing.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to call. I think that the drafts are relatively even. I don't think any team has an outright draft win. Picking up the Tychus and the Leoric into the Sonya and Diablo they're really, really strong picks into those. So I really like that a lot. And also Mei, I didn't quite get to this before, but Mei has a pretty good matchup in the Diablo. It's about a skill matchup. It's near 50-50, but I'd say it's more like 60-40 in favor of Mei. She just has a lot of counter engage that Diablo really doesn't like to deal with. She's just very annoying to play against as Diablo, because Diablo wants to be real aggressive, and she sort of just puts a stop to that. I'd say it's really even. Either team could take this off of draft. No clear-cut winner in my opinion.
Well, we're going to find out who's the clear-cut winner right now, because we are into Towers of Doom. And let's get these teams introduced for all of you at home. On the left-hand side, we have the members of Clown Fiesta. They have 1 on the board, and they only need 2 to win the game. Can they take a 2-0 up against Forgot to Warm Up? Let's find out, as we've got Aether on the Sonya, Aaron on the Sylvanas, Chakram on the Li Ming, Pickles of Death on the Diablo, and Squirrel playing the Anduin.
And on Forgot to Warm Up, we have Zadie playing the Lucio, Epic Player on the Leoric, Breakwood playing Tychus, Junkrat being played by JTR, and Hashmir playing Mei.
So we're moving into mid lane, taking stock of some of these level 1s. Nothing really crazy. I was actually looking at the Sonya to see if maybe she goes into block, but actually as I say that and think about it, that just get eaten by the Tychus immediately, or Tychus would destroy it regardless. But as we see this, it's actually going to be Junkrat rushing into bottom, Leoric into top lane, and the members forgot to warm up. They're just going to set up a 1-3-1 at the start of Towers of Doom, as Sonya, I'm assuming, will do double soak rotation duties between top and mid. But I was looking, and the observer caught it too. I was looking at the minimap to see, does JTR get caught out? No, JTR respects the rotation, plays safe by the front gate.
So one thing, Spickles of Death looks to go in here, but I don't think they're. I think they're just kind of, testing the waters. Not really gonna overly commit there. The red team should have slightly better early game rotations, and Diablo has to play much safer this game than he did in the last game as Garrosh. There's a lot more punish now with Tychus, so we're gonna have to see whether that aggression is sort of toned down and whether they're able to play the vision like they did in the last game or not. And the red team's already going onto their camp just off the bat, so already I'd say like a slightly better start and just setup coming out from the red team.
Maybe that loss on Infernal Shrines just now kind of lit a fire for the side of Forgot to Warm Up. Or, you know what? Based off their name, that could have been their warm-up game, Justin. That
Very well may have been.
Good read with the shattering teeth, or excuse me, the steel trap from Junkrat in the bush to be able to stop Pickles of Death from jumping onto this camp to try and steal it away, because I did see Diablo stepping through that bush to try and get a shadow charge into the enemy side, but this Sapper camp on the side of Forgot to Warm Up is going to get cleared out. On the opposing side, though, I think one Sapper did rush in. Diablo finds the shadow charge onto this Mei. Ashmere, though, putting pressure back onto Diablo. Leap of Faith from Squirrel saves Pickles of Death. But can Pickles of Death get away? Yes.
Pretty brave plays coming out from Pickles of Death so far, looking for the invade, and then also trying to go for that engage onto Mei right under the gate there. Very brave, considering that they're going up against a Junkrat. So whether that comes back to bite them in the future, we'll soon find out. But it's very brave. It's bold, I'll say, and hasn't been punished yet.
I see what you did there. You know, a bite. Junkrat has steel traps. They got teeth. I see what you did there. I got you, Justing. Don't worry. But Leoric will go down first blood over to the side of Clown Fiesta. He can cheat death. It's a low death timer, and we have our first objective phase spawning here. This is the standard on Towers of Doom, top, left, and right. The only thing that's RNG on Towers of Doom is does it spawn in the bottom location or the mid location. That's the only RNG from this first one, but it's always a triple altar phase with those top, left, and right spawning as well. But now we get into this, and the fight will break out over the bottom lane. Sylvanas and Sonya did grab a Sapper camp for the top lane, and as we were talking about it in the draft, Sylvanas did go possession at level 4. But now, let's look at this team fight breaking out over the bottom lane. Zadie trying to go for the channel. Can Pickles of Death and friends step in? Can Li Ming find a magic missile, anything? No, and it is going to be 8 shots into the core of Clown Fiesta as Diablo gets the Leap of Faith, but it still is going to be the kill into the Tychus. Zadie getting very low. There's a reset for Li Ming. She's trying to find another one, and they will find it in the Junkrat.
I think that was... I didn't even really catch exactly how Tychus went down there. I think it was
honestly.
Sylvanas just did a lot of damage on top of the Li Ming damage as well. Like that was, they turned that fight really, really well, because the fight started looking like Pickles of Death might be in trouble. There was a great pull coming out from Squirrel, which saved them. But just an incredible turn, just fearless. The blue team is just really like hyper aggressive. It's nice to see.
And their composition plays into that very well. Sylvanas is able to have a lot of mobility with the Haunting Wave, as well as the Withering Fire, Might of the Banshee Queen at level 1 as well, to increase the spell power, stacking up to 5 times, which is going to be 25%. And then you just have Li Ming in general with this Power Hungry at level 1, the Triumvirate, as well as Calamity at level 7. Just good play so far coming out from the side of Clown Fiesta. And Sonya, she actually went into a little more sustain at level 7 with the Battle Rage, but let's talk about no fight. I was actually waiting to see if Pickles of Death was going in, but just throws a Shadow Charge into Hashmir's face just to say hello really quickly. And Diablo does have full souls, as Sappers are pushing in through bottom lane.
Yeah, Diablo's getting really tanky, and the Tychus is going to be the only one who really gets to deal damage to them. So when the Tychus does not have... Oh, and the Tychus didn't go in the rhythm either, which that is a little concerning to me. They opted to go for Master Assassin. That's a little bit strange to me. I know that's pretty popular right now, and we'll see if that becomes an issue, because Breakwood on the Tychus, she's really the only one who is able to do any meaningful damage to this Diablo at all. So going Master Assassin, she's going to need to get fed if she wants to carry this game.
We'll see if she will get fed or if she'll be able to carry the game on Tyke as the body blocking from Li Ming. Pickles of Death just getting hit with the Blizzard as Sonya pops one of those battle rages. That's what that noise was really quickly. And the 4 shots rain into the opposing side core, 32-32, with 10 talent tiers a little closer in favor of Clown Fiestas. They have those 3 extra kills. Diablo has those full souls, as we mentioned, but you can also take note of that either through the talents or the little icon at the bottom of his character model. That is vision that both teams can see, so it's not like we can see it because we're observers, but Sylvanas, using those black arrows, locks down the tower, and 10 talent tiers come through. It's a Leap Sonya, my favorite kind of Sonya.
Yeah, I was interested to see whether they opted for the Leap or the Wrath. I really prefer the Leap here. It's very, very difficult for Lucio to save people from this, because it just happens so quickly. Basically, no matter which ultimate Zadie chooses to go for, it's going to be a hard time to counter this.
Apocalypse from Diablo will be coming out, and it's going to be a lot of CC. There's the sound barrier from the Lucio. Wailing Arrow from Sylvanas does come out. Some Chattering Teeth are thrown onto the ground. There will be a Light Bomb, and that's going to be Li Ming finding a kill into the Mei, getting a reset on her abilities, trying to throw another combo out, maybe onto the JTR, who was just hearthing right by their base front gate. And another objective phase, single altar, will be coming up in the center of the map in a little bit here, as Sonya's getting dove on right by the boss. She's got Leap. She's out of there. No big deal.
It seems like, yeah, the blue team is playing very, very aggressive, and the red team just doesn't seem like they can really keep up. The blue team is just non-stop aggression, just going in, and that's what their comp sort of is catered towards. But the red team really needs to, like, they need to work on just their disengage in general. The longer the fight plays out, it should be the better for them. They're kind of allowing the fights to happen just too quickly. They really need to play around JTR. I'd like to hopefully see him get some more boops that the enemy team's playing on, because that's really their advantage, is playing like a zone and playing the counter engage.
Breakwood was stepping up to maybe throw a grenade, but Sylvanas will respect it, not going for the channel. There's going to be a Shadow Charge overpower, a lot of damage onto Hashmer, who pops the Ice Wall, but Anduin gets the last auto, gives a reset over to Li Ming, who continues to poke out to the enemy side. Diablo eats the Chattering Teeth, and Sylvanas has the channel. The members of Clown Fiesta finding the advantage in this game when it comes to core damage.
It's also kind of impressive to me that the blue team has managed, that Clown Fiesta has managed to sort of just take bottom just by brute force, really. They sort of just forced their way in. They just... that's just their strategy, and they ran it down bot. They just consistently going bottom and just pushing it in, which is, it's very hard to do, especially against a Junkrat. He's what I'd classify as... I call them, what I used to tell them, my team, what I'd call them was goalies, because they sort of... You can't siege into them, so he's the optimal goalie, and even through that, it's just not enough. Like they just pushed right through it. They didn't even care that there was a Junkrat bottom this whole time. So just really good play from the blue team again in game 2.
I absolutely agree. Clown Fiesta controlling this bottom lane, and we talk about this really quickly for anyone wondering. Hold on, I'm going to hold that thought as Leap comes in from Sonya. Big leap into the Apocalypse. Light Bomb comes out as well. 1-2 kills. Reset City for Li Ming as she tries to find a third kill into Breakwood, but has to back away during the Arcane Orb backwards. But Justin, why do we talk so much about bottom lane control? Why is this lane so important on Towers of Doom?
Yeah, this lane is important because this is where both teams have sapper camps, so this is typically the lane that it's the easiest to kind of have an impact on the actual game score on. Epic actually gets going on. Looks like he's just going to get picked up and put down, and they have a pull for that too. Bottom's just, it's mostly just because there's 2 sapper camps there, and because of the way that the spawns are, that you always have a spawn like either middle or bottom. So that's the main reason, and it's like, it's mostly just because there's 2 sapper camps.
Get those extra shots in with the 5th shot from that bell tower, but without 16 talents here, this could be an even fight that the members of Forgot to Warm Up need, but Diablo goes in with the Shadow Charge overpower. Epic is a little split. The channel comes through from Sylvanas and friends, and 8 shots in totality go into the right side core. Really Diablo Souls reset. Aether leaps away. Squirrel throws the Light Bomb on himself, tries to back away, tries to get the Desperate Prayer, tries to get the Divine Healing, tries to get everything, but does go down. A double kill over to the side of Forgot to Warm Up. And as you said, that's a big deal. Yeah,
the souls being lost there by Diablo is very, very important. And Scroll going down, finally getting some momentum onto the red team is really, really huge for them at this point. It'll be into Sylvanas, it's going to be hard to actually get these pumpkins in, the sappers. Oh, and both sappers go into the tower. That's pretty unfortunate. You hate to see it for the red team, but still winning that team fight is really huge, and being able to take some of that HP off the Diablo, who bit off a bit more than he could, really, just it's good. The momentum couldn't possibly shift now.
That is the big conversation that you and I have been having today, is just momentum shift and control in the game. Because when you start getting, as a team, forced into the turtle up positioning where you just have to wait for waves to constantly come to you rather than being able to play into the lane, that starts to give a lot of map priority over to the opposing side, who can steal away your camps, just invade onto you in these lanes, and we will see Forgot to Warm Up making quick rotations into mid lane, seemingly stacking up as a 5-member group, but Apocalypse comes out from Diablo, big fight, Wailing Arrow from Sylvanas, and Junkrat is annihilated. There's a very low Sonya, Sleep is available, and Tomb comes out from the Leoric. Squirrel being protected by Aether, Light Bomb thrown out, leap in from Sonya, finds so much CC, Lucio getting some push-off value, Zadia trying to back away, Sylvanas getting those haunting waves around. Huge shadow charges and overpowers from Pickles of Death. Hashmer needs to back away. Leoric with the Wraith Walk to get out. But now a triple altar phase is here. And Pickles of Death gets one auto onto the fort right there. I was wondering what he was going for. But Sonya has the channel. Sylvanas has a channel. And look at this invade onto the right-hand side. This is, I wouldn't say greedy, but this is a dominant play so far from Clown Fiesta.
Clown Fiesta just, they're so quick to pull the trigger on all their members. And the fight's still going. It's like with the Garrosh, it's expected, but with the Diablo, the speed at which everyone just follows up, just Diablo charges them into the wall, and an instant arrow coming out from Sylvanas. Just really, and then like the bot fight they had previously too, the APOC leap combo. It's not an easy combo to like layer completely perfectly, and there was no hesitation. They just instantly go for it. The APOC came out before the leap even, so they're playing very coordinated. Like this team's scary. Like they're really just, they pull the trigger so quickly. And it was a great sound barrier from Zadie, but it just wasn't enough in that last fight.
Equal talent tiers and another objective phase soon to come up. It'll be top left and right. We will have the center portal opening as well as the towers upgrading from fort health and experience and damage to keep health, experience, and damage. So it's little things to consider right there. But mid lane gets burned down. Leoric is going to get caught out in top lane. He's got some Wraith Walk value with the Ominous Wraith and Royal Focus from 13-16. And he just mostly kind of buys some time into the top lane for the friendly team in mid to take down that Bell Tower. But Li Ming looking to press in some sappers through bottom as well, as Leoric is trying to save the top lane. A lot happening on the map. More defensive play from Forgot to Warm Up as Aether jumps in.
Are they starting boss? I think they're starting boss. I
Oh,
really
yeah.
like that a lot. Yeah, that's like the perfect. Their macro is really good. Yeah, that was smart. So they put the sappers in bottom, which forces the red team to respond to it on Forgot to Warm Up, and then they just get a free boss for it. There's basically like no way to defend against that. So because they have to defend the sappers bottom, and because of that, now just one shot, and Leoric just gets picked off as well. And now just one shot ends the game for Clown Fiesta. Just they're playing exceptionally well.
One sapper goes over the wall in the bottom lane. Apocalypse from Diablo will be coming out right now. There's a lot of damage, and that's a reset into the Mei. That is the quickest I've ever seen a Mei health bar drop like that. But Sonya on the left-hand side just needs to get the channel. Breakwood trying to delay things out, but Breakwood on an island by themselves. This is a leap from the leap of faith utilized by Squirrel to just get Diablo closer. Zadie trying to put the pressure on. That's a reset for Li Ming. Another reset for Li Ming. Junkrat with the Riptire goes down. It's a solid pentakill. And this is going to be our second best of 3 of the day. One in a 2-0 fashion. I say this already because the channel happens on the right-hand side. The core will fall. The GGs are called. And the members of Clown Fiesta move into tomorrow's best of 3 semifinals. GG, well played. Justing. There was a few moments of life shown by the members of Forgot to Warm Up, but Clown Fiesta, you had said it in the match, they are so quick to pull the trigger and just play off of Pickles of Death or Sonya's Aether.
Yeah, are we sure that this isn't an undercover CCL team just getting in for fun, getting some practice in? They were so coordinated. It was really surprising just how coordinated they were. Like, I can't overemphasize the play on bottom they had was so clean. That's something that even CCL teams can struggle with. The Diablo APOC into the leap, not the other way around. Like the APOC comes out and the leap is already like in midair,
Yeah.
ready to land, so that the combos, and then they that with the light bomb. It was just really, really impressive the way that they pulled the trigger on the team of Clown Fiesta. They played out of their minds, honestly. Their coordination was insane. Their macro was really good. Just really, really scary play coming out from them.
I wish we actually could have gotten to those comms. There was a couple points where I was like, ooh, is now a good time to get into comms or something? Because from game 1 to game 2, I feel like Clown Fiesta must have had so much more communication because, as you had said, that Apocalypse Leap combo, that's not easy to do, and Li Ming was just in the right spot, in the right position, and had nearly 20,000 more heroic damage than the opposing side Junkrat. So this Li Ming player, phenomenal play on their Lunara as well as Li Ming, but that is going to be our second best of 3. Unfortunately, one in a 2-0 fashion. So seems like these teams are kind of speed running day number 2 of our HeroesCCL free agent tournament. And, well, that does mean we have to get ready for our third best of 3 of the day. We'll be back in just a few minutes with that third best of 3. Don't go anywhere. This is HeroesCCL free agent tournament presented by Wisdom. Welcome back to HeroesCCL Free Agent Tournament presented by Wisdom. I'm still Bahamut, still joined by Justing, and we are getting ready for our third best of 3 of the day. And as we're getting we're about 50% through our matches today. Justing, how you feeling? You have any takeaways so far from today?
Well, I'd say I'm impressed with both the teams that have won have done it in pretty dominant fashion. And it wasn't necessarily the teams that I thought were going to win. Like the last series, I pretty much expected that Clown Fiesta was going to be the underdogs in that series, and they came out just completely swinging. They really smurfed it. And the game before that, or the series before that, rather, I thought it would be a little bit closer than it was, but once again, just teams are coming out and they're looking really dominant. So it's good to see.
It's been a really fun day of games so far. I've had a blast at these games. I'm hoping that maybe we find a best of 3 that goes to a game number 3, but well, that's for the players to decide, not us. I personally always want as much Heroes of the Storm as actually possible, but it's been fun today. We've seen a lot of Lunara priority, which I'm liking quite a bit, and it's, that level 7 choking Pollen has been such an instrumental tool for a lot of these Lunara players to get that big burst value. A lot more Vol than I was expecting, though, Justing. I wasn't expecting this much Vala priority, even with the slight nerf onto the Hungering Arrow at level 1.
Yeah, the Vala priority is a little strange to me as well. I think teams are probably sort of overvaluing her a bit. I think picking Vala and not drafting like an actual Vala comp with all the components that I think that requires to really enable the Vala, I think is a little weird. But she is a high skill expression hero, so getting to see it is always good for sure.
Well, we've been talking about what's happened so far today, and let's get you visibly updated on all of those things, as we've got a schedule update for you all. We started out today with Peasants Anonymous versus No Name, 2-0 in favor of Peasants Anonymous. We just watched Clown Fiesta take that 2-0 up against Forgot to Warm Up, and now we get ready for what you and I have both discussed on broadcast, off broadcast, as something we're very excited about, which is Scaling Copium versus Committing Sudoku. And on the side of Scaling Copium, these are some big names. I mean, not Porky. No, I'm just kidding. Porky's going to be there. Mene, June, Pirate Rum, whoever that is, and Nathanatos. A lot of actually really, really big names, as well as some big names within the community. A lot of really cool players. I'm excited for this one here, Justin. But who will we see on the side of Committing Sudoku?
On Committing Sudoku, we've got Just In Case, Gallon the Gunner, Deadwish, Casper, and Funds. Funds, obviously, is a standout one for me, as I played CCL Season 1 with Funds, and he was a pleasure to work with. Funds is a good player, and he's a nice guy. Gallon the Gunner also... Gallon the Gunner also is a player who has kind of slipped through the cracks of CCL. Like I really fully expected him to get drafted in the first seasons, and not getting drafted immediately was pretty surprising to me. So we'll see how he performs today in a match.
Definitely one of those community members that do stand out. And no, I was just kind of saying, you played CCL with Funds. You got I was gonna say, you got any sort of some drama you can share with all of us at home, some hidden secrets, but no, we have a lot of really cool players for this next best of 3, and personally, I'm excited to actually see. And and I joke about it all the time, but like Pirate Rum is same thing for me. Like I was expecting Pirate to be drafted in season 2, or just to be able to play in some of these games as well. Has a phenomenal Mephisto and just a repertoire of a lot of ranged assassin characters as well. So that's kind of a standout player for me going into this next best of 3. But a lot of big names, a lot of exciting names, as well as Casper in the solo lane. But we've talked a lot about the roster for this matchup. Let's actually find out where we're going to be heading to for our first map and our third best of 3 of the day. To kick things off, Justing, hey, we're heading to a tried and true. We got ourselves Battlefield of Eternity. Excuse me. My God. Infernal Shrines.
Infernal Shrines.
I looked at it and I was like, cool, it's one of the two. Let's flip a coin in my brain. But either way, we are going to be seeing Scaling Copium banning out the Cursed Hollow and the Alterac Pass, as we will have Committing Sudoku getting rid of Dragonshire and Tomb of the Spider Queen. I asked you this in previous series, so let's swap it up a little bit here. What is going to be the priority for these teams, in your opinion, when it comes to Infernal Shrines for map number 1? Is it going to be that team fight, or will it be that push potential?
I think most teams are going to be drafting for the team fight, especially on a map like Infernal Shrines, where it's very, very hard to win through macro strategy. It's almost entirely just the team that wins the shrines or wins the team fights in general wins the game. Hoping to see Mephisto priority up a bit, because I really think that this is his best map, and he might be, in my opinion, like the single strongest team fight hero on the map.
Oh yeah.
So I'd hope to see that get picked up, especially with players like Pirate Rum, who pilot it so well.
Yeah, that's we had a video where Pirate Rum sat down with Kyle Ferguson when Mephisto had changes, like at the beginning of season 2 of CCL. I think right around the free agent time. So it's exciting to see if he'll be breaking that down or playing that for us. But either way, let's get into the draft for Infernal Shrines. Jumping back into this push heavy map, team fight heavy map as well. And these bans are flying through. And one of the things that I was kind of expecting from this weekend, and I'm starting to see it a little bit more and more as we get through these games, Justing, is the priority bans onto Maiev as well as Stukov, even though Stukov was technically nerfed in the most recent patch.
Yeah, they're both still, well, obviously Maiev got buffed, so it's interesting to see that Maiev is so much stronger now that she's just been basically permanently banned, first banned. That's surprising to me, because I knew she would be stronger, but I didn't know if she would be that much stronger. And then Right Wing being banned along with Stukov, instant Tychus. The Junkrat ban makes a lot of sense to me as well. He's just a really, really solid pick on this map and just annoying to play into. But the Tychus first pick is a little bit interesting.
So either they're trying to get Mene on something comfortable, or just the members of Scaling Copium really, really want the Tychus. And there's nothing really wrong with that. Tychus is a strong hero. He's got a lot of different viable builds and playstyles, so we'll see how that is going to be adjusted by Scaling Copium. But a double-blind composition from Committing Sudoku with Cassia and Joanna, that's really going to make Tychus' life very difficult.
Yeah, I do like that a lot. In general, there aren't that many Tychus counters, but they just went up and just instantly picked two of them. So there's not a lot. So picking those right away shows that they know what they're doing, and it seems like they have a draft prep for this, because that was pretty quick.
Anduin to be grabbed with Hogger. For anyone at home wondering, the Anduin player name, that is June. So if you're wondering who's that, it's going to be June. So getting into our next ban phase, the members of Scaling Copium will need a tank. So I would expect a tank ban priority from Committing Sudoku. It's going to be that Stitches. And funny enough, this is actually twice on Infernal Shrines where Stitches is banned out. But I know Porky plays a lot of Stitches and does like to play that. So I think that's the reason it's just a target ban onto Porky here.
Yeah, that's really, really interesting. Pretty surprising that they banned Stitches on Infernal Shrines. Something else I'd like to point out is that since they took Anduin here, Anduin has the Light Bomb plus Hogger Hortipult combo, but it also denies Falling Sword Light Bomb combo from Johanna, so I do like the Anduin quite a bit for that.
And
the Haka ban is really weird to me.
Why is that?
Just Infernal Shrines is definitely not Haka's best map. Well, the Haka has been buffed quite a bit recently to make him a little bit better in team fights. I think that he still provides less in a shrine fight environment than like a Blazewood or a Leoric.
Got you.
So it's just weird.
Yeah, it was just
even.
Well, and speaking of Yrel, Casper is going to get a comfort in said Yrel. I was able to catch some of Casper in previous games as well as yesterday, and the Yrel control, I mean, it was actually really funny. There was a 10 overkill onto a Varian. Casper had the Righteous Hammer, not the Righteous Hammer, the Templar's Verdict at level 16. It does percent base damage, and I checked to see how much it did to Varian because he had a lot of health, and with that extra 7% off of the total HP, he had 10 overkill, which is so rough. But either way, let's talk about the draft because Gul'dan Diablo on the side of Scaling Copium. What do you make of these drafts that are really kind of finishing out here?
I really like the Diablo, and is that a Mene Gul'dan? Is that the classic? Because
They have to swap.
I know
Yeah.
Mene is a very, very good Gul'dan player, so I'm expecting Mene's going to be playing it. He's kind of known for his mages. Yeah, there's the swap.
Yep.
And the Diablo getting through, I think, is a bit interesting. I know Porky might have a preference towards Stitches, and it might be more of a safe tank, but for the map, I would have much preferred to see a Diablo ban. So I think that the blue team Scaling Copium's draft is pretty superior.
There's a lot of really good control as I look at the Joanna and the Urel, and do you think that they could, on the side of committing Sudoku, control their way through Infernal Shrines? Or do you think that Scaling Copium just has too much damage, too much aggression, and can just kind of snowball or roll over committing Sudoku with their damage and aggression?
I think a lot of it is going to come down to whether or not how comfortable Porky is on Diablo.
Okay.
I think Porky is in a position where he can either make or break this game, depending on if he ints or not. To be fair, if Porky's not comfortable on Diablo, also depending on what build Porky goes. Hopefully he doesn't go into any like auto attack based builds, and I'm hoping that he just goes Fire Breath here or Lightning Breath because it's very good into the enemy team's comp. And then I'm looking to see Deckard make big plays on the red team to win the shrines.
Alrighty, well, let's go ahead and introduce our teams and find out what's going to happen here on Infernal Shrines, map 1 of our third best of 3. Scaling Copium in the blue, Porky on the Diablo, Pirate Realm on the Tychus, Nathanatos on the Hogger, Mene on the Gul'dan, and Anduin played by June.
And on Committing Sudoku, we've got Funds playing Cassia, Deadwish playing Hanzo, Just In Case playing Johanna, Gunner playing the Deckard, and Casper playing the Urel.
And Deadwish immediately kicking off this mid lane engagement with a couple stacks on that simple geometry level 1. Mene going into the Echoed Corruption at level 1, not going to be going into the Drain build as we've seen popularized by a lot of European players, and I've been seeing it more and more in NA. Funds? I think Porky was maybe looking for an overpower or something onto Funds, but just this Cassie was a little too far away from the Diablo. But our double soak rotations begin, and the one thing I want to note for Just In Case is this will be that Laws of Hope at level 1 to be able to build out that healing over time. Currently, Joanna heals for 20% of her maximum HP over 5 seconds. And for every 10 stacks of regeneration globes you get, you increase that by 5%. So, example, if you're at 10 stacks, you have 25. So we'll keep you up to date on that number as the game does progress, as well as some of those other questing talents, much like Porky's baseline Diablo Souls. But now, we're here into Infernal Shrines, Justing, and we've got the Arcane Punisher in top lane first. I want to actually ask you about this. Does the Punisher, the first Punisher positioning, does that matter how you ever play the map? Like, do you rotate differently if it's a bottom lane or a mid lane Punisher, or does that not really matter?
The big thing that matters is whether or not it's top or bottom,
Okay.
or well, whether it's on a side or if it's in the middle. If you have a comp where you're going to be trying to play to split and give the objective, it's really always very tragic when the first shrine spawns in the middle and you'd like to split, but the shrine is close to, both the side lanes.
Okay.
So it doesn't matter too much whether it's top or bottom, it's just whether or not it's a side lane or in the middle.
I see what you mean, okay.
Yeah, but most teams, I would think that both of these teams would most likely be looking to just contest. Neither team really has any crazy split pushing capabilities, and neither team seems like they're really, really behind on the shrine. So I'd expect both teams just contest for it.
Right now, we are going to be seeing Porky go into that Soul to Flame at level 4, so maybe Porky listening on to your advice here and just going for this a little bit safer of a Fire Stomp build, which actually will be an easy way for Porky to build out those the souls throughout these objective phases, because everyone kind of clumps up around this, and Porky can just throw Fire Stomp after Fire Stomp out. Just In Case pops the Iron Skin to mitigate any sort of overpower Shadow Charge or even CC from Porky. And here comes our first objective, with Hogger on the left grabbing that Fallen Shaman camp, and Hanzo and Deckard Cain on the right grabbing their own respective one. But now we get into this, and this is going to be a fun shrine here, Justin.
Yep. Something I'm noticing is Tychus having bigger they are is very peculiar to me. I'm curious what his thought process on this is, because, it is good with grenade build. It pairs well because you have just the way that you play with grenade builder kind of is better with that. You're more focused on your grenades and then like your burst with your minigun. But it's really kind of awkward to play into Johanna when you have Johanna and you have Cassia on the enemy team. As long as the Johanna is able to save her blind for the Tychus D, it's a very long cooldown. Not having the bigger they are, or even the Master Assassin on level 4, I think it might be kind of hard to actually finish the Johanna off when she gets low, especially if she's unable to, or if she's able to just blind it or use her D to block that damage.
Got Hogger with the infinite spin on the east-west positioning. Porky just trying to anchor for, actually just going to be trying to come in here and pull some of those sappers into Hogger right now, liking that little assistance from Porky. But right now, as you were mentioning, this is the top lane objective. So Yrel and Cassie are doing some split soaking through mid and bottom. Gul'dan Mene is doing the exact same thing, trying to match that experience. A killless game so far. Deadwish has 17 stacks on the simple geometry. And we are going to see the objective phase won out by the members of Scaling Copium. What is the play with this, though? That is my biggest question posed to our blue team. How much value do they get with this first Punisher? Is it going to be a fort front gate, or do we go through the fort and the gate and the fort?
I don't expect them to get very much here. It is a little weird that the red team just so willingly gave it without getting any like real advantage in the off lanes, especially when you have someone like Gul'dan who can pretty easily double soak against both the Yrel and the Cassia. But yeah, I'm expecting just the gate pretty much, which is what it's looking like. So neither team's going to get a really huge advantage here, and at least like from a macro perspective, both teams are going to be, I think, pretty happy with that, just going into the rest of the game fairly even. So the level 10 shrine will probably be where the big like break of one of the teams getting ahead comes from.
And that will be our next shrine. Coming up will be, both teams will have level 10 to contest that. As I was actually looking at the minimap and seeing that Mene and Hogger were putting a little pressure through mid, so the expectation is that, well, the next Punisher won't be top lane. It'll either be mid or bottom, and actually, funny enough, we have the icon on the map already. It's going to be a Frozen Punisher in mid lane. So that little bit of early siege into the gate helps out if the Punisher's won by Scaling Copium. Porky finding a good combo into just in case, and will drop this Johanna down below 50%. Gunner's got a couple healing potions here and there, and the Black Souls were finished out by Porky. So it's time to feed Porky, time to int real hard.
Yeah, Porky's real tanky, so he's going to have to try really hard if he wants to feed now that he's got all his souls. And the enemy team doesn't really have any real way to deal with him, not until level 16, when they have the options to go into some percent damage on Cassia and Hanzo. So until then, and Yrel even, I guess. So there's going to be a big window here where Porky should feel pretty invincible for the next 6 levels, or 5 levels. And we'll see if he's able to push that advantage or not. And I do like that he went Lightning Breath as well. A good choice here.
Justing, what is this? Deckard Cain Lorenado, and we've got Hanzo with Dragon Strike as well. This is...
They buffed the level 20, right, for Lorenado. I think it's pretty good.
So
pretty good, right?
they also buffed the baseline Lorenado, which actually, it didn't deal damage in the previous... it just previously never dealt damage. Now it deals... a whole 30 damage per bot. The Lightning Breath and doing Light Bomb. There's a dragon from Hanzo. Deadwish trying to put some pressure into the enemy side. Fun's getting very low, and that'll be Johanna going down. That is first blood, 6 minutes and 30 seconds in.
Yeah, both teams playing pretty patient here, leading up to that point. And one thing that I guess neither team really has too long of cooldowns, so that shouldn't have too much of an impact on the next shrine. The only one that maybe they won't have Porky's ult at the very start of it, if the shrine starts soon. But that, I mean, I don't think either team's going to get a crazy huge advantage, but it's somewhat to be expected, I guess, and I like to see that the blue team is just kind of slowly winning across all fronts. They're sort of just like winning a little bit in macro, and then there they won just by a small margin in the team fight, so it's mostly to be expected. It is important, too, that you're always able to save her ultimate, because her ultimate's the longest cooldown by far. If she would have used that, it would have been pretty bad for the upcoming shrine.
Yeah, 2-minute cooldown on the Ardent Defender, or Absorbent Defender, however you want to pronounce that one. But skimming through those heroics, we also do have, we didn't talk about it much, but we do have the Shockwave from the Hogger. I'm liking that we're seeing more and more Shockwave from Hogger players. When he was released, I feel like we saw 0 value because everyone went Hortipulp, but now it's this a lot more Shockwave value, and it's I think it's a cool CC talent, pairs well for the Andu and the Tychus as well as Gul'dan, because much like any mage, you never want to stand still into them like a Chromie. That's why Very and Chromie's so strong together, because that stand still factor of taunt. But let's talk about what's happening here on the shrine, because just in case is getting chunked, has to pop the Laws of Hope.
Ooh, Nathanatos does stop spinning. I think the fight should be easier for the blue team, but a lot of it's really going to come down to the Deckard, I think. If the Deckard is able to hit a good combo, with the healing reduction. That's going to be really how they win this. But Johanna into Diablo is a really it's really awkward. It's like it's not fun to be Johanna into Diablo. You kind of feel very weak in the 1v1. So
very
yeah,
controlled,
it's
if you will, because Diablo is just pushing you around constantly, and this is going to be the Skeletal Defenders won over by the side of Scaling Copium, and they will push into this mid lane. You know what? You want to jump into some Scaling Copium comms and hear how they're going to push this in?
Yep.
Let's go in.
Let's do it.
Making. Fucking everything.
Oh, let's
you
just
see a red
do
behind?
one out.
Yeah,
I think
I
we
don't
want
want
out.
push
We're
top
not going to
here.
get more. Yeah, try and get top lane. Do you want to do bottom camp maybe? While Hogger's pushing top?
Sure, I will take this wave quick.
What's up?
It should be in
Yeah, they're
push.
sitting top now.
No eyes on the rest of the team. Lord Nado used on the siege
Yo,
camp.
I don't want to invade their camps.
Wait.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm just getting vision. They're not
I'm being
really
sneaky.
going
We
to
can
kill me.
look for something here,
Okay,
maybe.
I'm looking.
Okay. But don't not
One's
too deep,
maybe?
not too deep. Okay.
It's not that
That's
deep.
fine. That's good.
Yeah. Okay, that's falling sword.
Do you wanna invade then? They have no falling
I
sword.
can. Yeah.
Okay. Let's get bot prio and then go do it.
You see my position? I will look for a fear on the back line if they. I don't wanna show you.
I don't see Uriel.
I think we have.
Your else mid.
You get it, right?
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah, we're good.
Can you get out?
Maybe I look on funds if he steps up again. I'm just gonna flip Joe. Hit Joe.
I popped the shield. Actually
Let's
slow.
go, let's go. I can't look for fear. It's too deep. We are chilling.
Yeah.
We should win the shrine now.
Do our easy as well. And,
Okay.
Hey, we can look for this with us.
My apologies to the players right there. I said a little something because Discord has small lag. But either way, we got to hear a little bit of those comms, and we did hear how they're kind of playing this right now. And it seems Justing a little trying to force fights that aren't necessary in a sense. We saw Porky just like, I'm just going to hit Joanna. Like, I don't know if that was really necessary, or I don't know. I don't play a lot of Diablo, so it's just that level of pressure. You just constantly want to throw that out into Joanna's face, or is this maybe our blue team Scaling Copium looking for more fights than they are even presented?
I think going on the Johanna there is good. Diablo kind of gets to just do whatever he wants against Johanna, so whenever the Johanna walks up, it's good to be looking for that type of stuff, because it's like if you're able to ever EQ, there's really no risk to you as long as the enemy team's not able to follow up. And it was kind of interesting to see. I know with his regular teams, he's like a pretty dominant force in the macro and stuff. Like he's pretty much typically just like shot calling, and it was kind of interesting to hear him sort of have to tone it down a bit when he's placed into a team with all these veterans who are all like you have Mene and June and players that are they're very confident in what they're doing, and they've done this so many times, and they're all so experienced. It was kind of interesting to hear Porky sound a little bit more nervous, I guess, than he normally would be. It was kind of funny. But I think now that it's 16, the enemy team can actually win a fight, so I'm hoping to see this is where the red team wins a team fight, now that they all have their percent damage abilities with Uriel, and I guess all of them have it, so it's good.
You also got that safety in numbers for the Deckard Cain, so he's it's just a safer old man. But as you had mentioned, like Giant Slayer for that Hanzo coming through as well. So excited to see what will be utilized and also that Templar's verdict from Uriel with that Righteous Hammer. And I was telling you all about Casper on this Uriel with the Righteous Hammer play. So we'll see if that will be the case here. Casper actually looking for a flank into the enemy team, but can't really get the angling they're looking for. Mene playing close to the gate. Casper jumps in, gets the Divine Steed, pushes Porky around, and this will be Hogger finding that infinite bounce back and forth on the top shrine. Uriel jumping in to try and counteract a lot of the pressure. Oh my god, Dead Wish with the scatter arrow launches a huge dragon strike into the Thanatos, but they'll be fine. Porky goes down, Souls reset on Diablo. Tornado out from Deckard Cain, zones out the enemy team. That was a huge scatter arrow into the Thanatos, but a big pick onto Diablo.
It's kind of insane how much they're able to turn it on now that they're got their 16 talent tiers. Like you can tell that they're just way more confident too in the way that they're fighting. Gallon the Gunner kind of wasted the blessings a bit, or his team did, either way. But actually Johanna gets engaged on. I think she has Iron Skin. She does. She'll just walk away. But Dead Wish, right after making such a good play, kind of gets picked off there a bit.
Sustained damage from Tychus is going to be a lot. Falling Sword from Jono will be forced, and that's more of a disengage tool than anything else, because just in case is so very low, gets a potion from Decker Kane. Fun's going in for the fend onto Mene. And Porky comes in to save Mr. President. Casper getting pushed around, pushing back the enemy team with some Righteous Hammer value. Ardent Defender used. No mana really available for Casper, but it seems like that's the disengage from committing Sudoku, with 2 members falling, and this is another objective over to the side of Scaling Copium.
I like at least that the fight seemed a lot closer now that they had their 16s, and I think it was just like a slight misplays coming out from both the ranged players from committing Sudoku. I think that the game's most likely not going to end off of this. It would have to be a crazy thing happening for the game to be over. So I think there's a pretty high chance that both these teams are going to get a level 20 fight, which should be interesting because the red team might be able to get the upper hand in a fight at 20.
Yeah, that might be a good time if we get to that point to jump into the committing Sudoku comms, but we'll have to see if that's going to be a something that presents itself to us. And actually, I very much think you are correct in that 20 talent tier fight happening, because Porky and crew are looking just to open up the map further for the side of Scaling Copium. I want to get your thoughts here, Justin. Why would you do this? Is this the right call, just to open up the map and take out double fort?
Yeah, I like this a lot because they know that since the shrine was top, the next shrine can't be top again. So knowing that the shrine coming after this will most likely be a 20v20 fight, and there's a pretty high chance that the winner of that can actually win the game off of it. I really, really like that they took the mid and bot ports, so that if they do get it, they can actually have a win condition there with the 20 fight. I hope that they go get this well, though. Okay, good there. June knows. Oh,
the minions got it.
Yeah. All right, that's actually a huge deal.
I agree with you, because lane sustain around objective phases is a huge thing to consider, because if a team can back off, tap well, re-engage, and they don't have to go all the way to their keep, that's a re-engagement that it's just going to be sped up, and time in those situations around the objective phases are critical. Now, talking about where our next objective phase will be, it's going to be Arcane Punisher, middle of the map. This Impaler camp is coming through mid, and Porky and friends are setting up to maybe dive into anyone on the side of committing Sudoku who steps up. Casper playing this safe, just picking up the experience globes on the ground, waiting for these waves to come in. We talk about this concept quite a bit, and this is a great example of what's called turtling. You are staying in your base, you're playing it safe, and you're letting the waves crash into you.
Yeah, now that the blue team has level 20s, I do hope that they're going for it now, which is good. I hope that they try to push their advantage as much as they can in this window. Trying to keep the teams here, because if they don't, they allow the enemy team to just let the waves kind of crash into them and sort of push into them, which is what they want. So as long as they don't overstay, and here they're taking the knights, which is also fine. There's not a whole lot for them to do in this time, because now that they're getting on 20s, it becomes very risky. They really want to fight on the shrine. Their comp is still very, very strong on the shrine.
Well, Urel just picked up her 13th Self-Cleanse talent with Seraphim at level 20. Got those perfect gems for the Decker Kane. Some really nice pickups at 20 for the members of Committing Sudoku, as well as the Infinite Lightning. And on an objective phase like Infernal Shrines, with so many enemy members stacking up around said objective, that Infinite Ball Lightning can really find quite a bit of value, also giving you cooldown reduction by 5 seconds per bounce. Last season in CCL, and I will never forget this, we had a triple ball lightning onto a variant at one point. Like it was the craziest thing I've ever seen. I've seen double ball lightning being cast, never triple on a single enemy hero. So we'll see if maybe funds can utilize that infinite lightning in this next engagement. But I want to point out one other thing here before we get into this objective phase, or at least there it is. I was counting. I was like, hold on, it's about to be here. Justin, this is the lowest kill game we've seen so far, 3-1 in kills.
Yeah, both these teams are playing the macro really, really well, and they're not giving away anything for free. You could tell, like, this is the first match, I'd say, where both the teams were playing macro, like, at the highest level they could. How the team knew that they weren't going to win the shrine, or for whatever reason they didn't think they could, so they split. So that's why it's so close. Both teams respect each other so much. Something that's really important, though, is that Porky actually only has 86 souls. Since all the waves were pushing into the enemy team before, he wasn't able to get souls, which could actually be really important. And also, since the red team prefers to play sustainy fights, their 20s cater towards that a lot more, but Funds actually just takes a ton of damage. It's the 20s, I think, should play into the red team, and the red team wants to play the fight as slow as possible, and the blue team wants to play the fight a lot quicker.
Oh yeah, here comes the falling sword though from the Joanna into the back line of the enemy team. Fun's gonna have to use the Hellgate to get away from the enemy side. Hanzo goes down, so is the Cassia. There will be a lightning breath from Porky, slowing down Gunner. Hogger with the no control is bouncing from player to player just in case. Has to use the falling sword at level 20 with the
Blue team can end the
Heaven's
game.
Fury. Yeah, this is, I think the
I'm curious if they go top and end, or even just mid, but I think they can definitely end top.
Urel's gonna reset Porky's lives again here. Oh no, unless there was another Righteous Hammer, that definitely would have done it, but no, not the case. Pirate Realm is going to grab the Commandeer Odin and really shred their way through this keep, and I like how Hogger was left behind to grab the Punisher, because I think it's just more of a insurance. Like, if they can't end with these 4 members, they at least have the Punisher coming through the lane to deal significantly more damage as well.
Yeah, the last fight was just, I think, might have just been kind of the Mene factor. The red team sort of got anxious, a little antsy.
Yeah.
And they needed to recognize that their comp wants to play really slowly. I think Johanna, just in case on Johanna, went a little bit too aggro, but then the team sort of went a little too wild, falling up. That being said, the falling sword kind of popping off there. Oh, reset too.
Yeah, Heaven's Fury with so many enemy members around. Porky, I don't know what you're doing there, but this is a double kill. Oh my god, that Punisher finds the kill into Urel. The Nexus Force is a little too OP. The core, though, we had talked about this. There was a little bit of siege already going into it. Decker Kane with the Lornado coming out, but the Punisher with 60-some% HP is going to end the game here. And first game, we'll go over to the side of Scaling Copium. GG, well played. Justing, what I gotta ask of you is not only based on the drafts, but who's playing in this game. Did this game go as you expected, or was there a lot more life shown from committing Sudoku than maybe we were thinking here? Because I know Scaling Copiums, they got a lot of big names on that team, but committing Sudoku had a really phenomenal day yesterday and a pretty good showing here in this first map.
I think committing Sudoku played pretty well overall. Honestly, it just came down to a couple of team fight mistakes. Namely the top shrine where Sidwish had a shrine winning fight or a shrine winning play and then sort of followed up with like sort of a shrine losing play. So sort of a high variance player in that situation at least. But honestly, I think part of it was the draft. I'd say that the blue team's draft was a lot easier to play. And for them to be more experienced players playing a draft that is easier to play, I almost expected them to be more dominant than they were. The game was really, really close, and either team could have easily won just with one team fight, like you saw in the last fight there. The blue team just happened to get the edge in the team fight. So I think this could easily go to a game 3 if committing Sudoku is able to, work on the draft a bit.
I'd love to see us I'd love to see us go to a game number 3 for the day, but that is on the shoulders of committing Sudoku to really, really pull out here. And man, I'm just looking at the stats still. June's Anduin had 76,000 healing, just rounding up here, and Deckard Kane, played by Gunner, had 52,000. And I know it's these are big number differences and stuff like that, and it's also different play styles, different healers and stuff. But just June really, really doing a phenomenal job of sustaining the friendly team. And that last engagement, I honestly was expecting Porky to go down way before that lightning breath was triggered. And once that Hellgate was forced by Porky, I thought that was gonna be it for the fight, and committing Sudoku would build that momentum with the Punisher. But it's not the case, and Scaling Copium scaling quite hard in that game number 1.
Yeah, Mene in particular, it's to be expected with a name like Mene, who's been around forever and has played at the highest levels possible. Just a great player, but his Gul'dan is something special. I'd say for most, in general, Gul'dan is he's an all-around good character. He kind of does everything okay, but in the hands of a sort of like a mage-focused player like Mene, who's so experienced, he kind of makes Gul'dan the case that Gul'dan could even be kind of OP, mostly because of his ultimate. His ultimate usage is really, really good, as you could tell in the last fight. He sort of just won the team fight with the Haunt level 20 Gul'dan ultimate. And yeah, that ult's just so strong if you're able to use it like he does. It's a pretty big deal to have that heavier range, be able to engage the fight like that, sort of.
When you get hit with that Haunt at level 20, does it not feel like that? It's because it's only a 1 second increased duration of you kind of just walking away from your friendly team, or being the status effect by the Horrify. Doesn't that 1 second feel like just forever? Like that 1 extra second just makes it feel like such a. It's like, really, we're still going with this talent right now? Like, I don't know about you, but it just feels like an eternity every single time I get hit by that at level 20.
Yeah, and it's always awkward in comms too if your team gets hit by like 3 or 4 of you get hit by something like that where you're all CC'd because the comms kind of go from like everyone's talking, everyone like in that fight they're probably they're really hypey. It's just funny to have how the comms it's like like what no.
Well, right now we're going to take a small little break. Looks like we got to get something fixed on the back end. So we will be right back with more Heroes CCL free agent tournament presented by Wisdom in a few moments. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Heroes CCL free agent tournament presented by Wisdom. We had to shoo a few bears away from chewing on my internet lines, and I think we're back and ready to go into our next map in our third best of 3 of the day. My name is Bahamut. I'm still joined by Justing, and here we go. See, I actually read the future, Justing. I read the script wrong. I said Battlefield for the first map, but it's because it's the second map. So Scaling Copium as the are going to be choosing to take us to Battlefield of Eternity. The losing side, which is going to be committing Sudoku, opting for first pick priority going into the second map. Now, we've talked a lot about Battlefield when it comes to race potential, as well as, like priority onto these assassin players, but let's talk about healers here. We rarely talk about the supports, the healers. What's your priority for a map like Battlefield? Do you think like a Deckard Cain, a Lucio is stronger, or do you think you need something like a Stukov or even maybe a Tyrande to amplify, like Tyrande side, to amplify some of the race potential and team fighting?
I think they all have their own sort of unique advantages and disadvantages. Tyrande was one that you have to be very all in on the burn if you're going to pick her because you don't have anything to auto attack if you're playing defense, which is something that most people probably don't think about until you get into the game and you find out, I'm Tyrande and we're defending and we're getting poked at and I can't heal any of it back. So there's a lot of like pros and cons to all of them, but in general you definitely want something that has CC that can interact with the immortals, like a Lucio Boop or Stukov Puddle or Malfruit, stuff like that.
I've never heard it called Stukov Puddle, but it's actually kind of perfect. That's a good one. I'll have to steal that one away from you. But we are here, map number 2, in our second best of 3, and we will be seeing an immediate ban onto Stitches. This is going to be committing Sudoku, forcing Porky onto that Diablo or onto something different. This could be a Diablo ban as well and just force Porky onto something that's maybe uncomfortable. No, it's going to be an Uther ban. Quick bans as well, Justin.
Yeah, the Uther ban's really interesting, and it seems apparent that they really want to keep Porky off of the Stitches for whatever reason. And the Maiev ban is another standard thing. So now I guess, Li Ming, so they do actually go towards a map-specific ban, which is a bit interesting. So Stukov is available, but there's also other good supports up, like Right Wing is available, which was banned before as well.
I feel like
Hanzo.
Right Wing's been banned in like every game so far today. Maybe like one match we haven't seen Brightwing banned, but even then it wasn't even picked up in the map. But yeah, Brightwing being up and available, it's gonna be a priority into Junkrat. Like the control, and even then, like Chattering Teeth, Big As, gotta trap them all. Those 3 talents on a Junkrat make it so difficult to just step forward into the enemy team.
Yeah, Junkrat's just really hard to deal with, but this isn't necessarily his best map.
True.
The Hanzo makes a lot of sense. I kind of would have expected a Hanzo instead of the Junkrat, even though Junkrat is so strong. And I'm assuming that they're going to trade out supports if they prioritize Stukov. Yeah, that would make sense. So there it is. I'm really curious what the red team is going to play or pick or ban to maybe keep Porky off of something like Diablo again. Because when you pick a Junkrat, you make your draft a little bit more susceptible to being unable to actually deal with something like Diablo that has that much HP. So the Hogger is okay. Out of the offlaners, the Hogger is one of the better ones at dealing with something like that. And I would expect that they'll just ban Diablo with them picking up the Anubarak as well.
I like a lot of the control in the CC from committing Sudoku. You've got the Staggering Blow from Hogger, Concussion Mine from Junkrat. You've got a Nubarak with 2 forms of CC baseline. So so far it's a good build out from the side of committing Sudoku, but we'll have to see what Scaling Copium really leans into because we don't know much about their draft. This is a really strong start as you only have the Hanzo Stukov, and that doesn't dictate the direction they're going. You can still go into a dive comp. You can still go into a control comp. We'll have to see after this ban phase comes through, but there will be the priority ban onto Malfurion not wanting to deal with his rooting, his poke, as well as his heroics are really, really strong, Justin.
Yeah, I think them picking the Hogger and Anubarak too, in particular, I think might have been a bit of a They sort of have to, with the Stukov being picked up on the other side. You can't really allow them to have that. And it's interesting that they're okay with Porky potentially getting Diablo again, as there's not a ton of things up to deal with it. They would have to pick, again, like a Tychus or something in order to offset how little damage Junkrat does to someone like a Diablo. So I'm curious to see how that plays out.
I'd love to see actually Muradin picked up here for the side of Scaling Copium. I think Muradin's phenomenal in Battlefield of Eternity with the... I mean, there's multiple different ways to play him, but Sledgehammer at 4 is a good way to be able to race the Immortal and put pressure as you're sieging in. But it's going to be a Garrosh Blaze. Blaze does have the AoE stun. For anyone that doesn't know, the actual Jet Propulsion, if you connect onto an enemy hero, does have a bit of a splash radius on it. So if the enemy team's a little clumped up, maybe racing the Immortal, you get a phenomenal Jet Propulsion. It's a good AoE. You find some groundbreaker value from Garrosh, a puddle from Stukov as you will, and then Hanzo just dumps in damage with Scatter Arrows, Stormbows, and basic attacks. So liking what Scaling Copium has here, but committing Sudoku, Justing, they have rolled out the last 2 heroes for their draft, the Anduin Tychus.
Yeah, they sort of had to go Tychus there. I think if the blue team would have taken the Tychus away, then committing Sudoku would have been in a really awkward position in the draft. Even with that said, I think almost no matter what they pick, they might even go with Gul'dan again here. Honestly, they could. There'd be nothing wrong with that. Maybe like a Jaina or something. We could see something weird from Mene.
Mephisto.
With Li Ming being banned.
Hire a Mephisto.
Ooh.
You know what? I like the Falstad. You could go, I'm assuming it's auto attack build, but hammering build is, I've been seeing it more and more from higher level players. Do you see it more yourself as well, or is it still just auto attack through and through for a lot of Falstad players?
I think it comes down to more of preference now, and maybe less preference, but just, based on, you're not, it doesn't feel like you're so pigeonholed into one specific strategy anymore. I think you have more build diversity on Falstad, which is one of the reasons why I think he's just so strong. Overall,
yeah, no, please.
Oh yeah, I mean, just that. I think you have more options now. It doesn't feel like any of the builds on Falstad are like too OP. They all have compelling arguments for each one. So I think it's more situation based, or just comfort based.
I was gonna honestly just meme about dishonorable discharge because I don't think there's a place for that ever. But hey, maybe there is. Maybe if the enemy team just doesn't move out of that. But you know what is moving? This best of 3 match, and we're here into Battlefield of Eternity. Our second map and our third best of 3 of the day. And on the left-hand side, we got Scaling Copium trying to close things out in a quick 2-0 fashion, much like the rest of our maps. Let's see what happens. Mene on the Falstad, Pirate Rum on the Hanzo, Porky playing the Garrosh, Nathanatos playing Blaze, and June on the Stukov.
And on the red team, committing Sudoku, we've got Funds playing the Junkrat, Galn the Gunner playing the Anduin, Nubarak being played by Just In Case, Deadwish playing Tychus, and in the off lane we have Casper playing the Hogger.
Looking at those level ones, it is going to be that hammering from the Gathering Storm. But sorry, you were saying something, Justin, and I'm curious.
I'm very. I'll be surprised if the red team is able to do well in the early game here. Their composition is, it's very, very hard to play into what the blue team has drafted. I think the blue team's comp is much more straightforward and easy to play, easy to execute. They have a very front to back style of composition, and I'm assuming it will be or the Falstad I like for auto attack base Falstad. Just for into a Nubarak, it's really, really strong to have. I mean, he didn't go it so far. He's Gathering Storm, but I think having having double auto attack type characters into a Nubarak is really, really strong. And Nubarak hates that. He loves playing against mages. So I think the pivot from Mene showing that he doesn't only play mages, even though he plays with mages well, is really good. And you're going to see them just kind of try to bully Just In Case, and then it's going to be kind of a back and forth between Just In Case surviving against the Garrosh, and then at level 10s, once they start getting some heroic abilities, then the red team is going to probably be able to look for actual team fights with Cocoon and stuff and just hard engage dive the back line. But until then, when it's a front to back, it's going to be very, very hard. And they do recognize that, so they send the Tychus top, force it to be a 2v1, which is a good idea. I like that.
So when we talk about, because we're in this early game, we have some time to talk about some of these concepts. And actually, let me hold that thought, because Mene is going to jump up here, but Casper and Gunnar are trying to get him to the point. Nathanatos finds a Jet Repulsion to the face of Gunnar, I do believe. This is a very low Anduin, but June getting shredded by Deadwish. Gunnar very low. These two supports are just trying to keep the friendly members alive, and the camp does go over to the side of committing Sudoku. But as I said, while we're having a little bit of the setup on this map, I'd like you to break down a little bit further. What does it mean for front to back from the side of Scaling Copium? How does that team fight work for them, and what has to happen for Scaling Copium to win said team fight front to back?
So their composition is they have a stronger front line between the Blaze and Garrosh. Like they just have more survivability and HP and tankiness. And also the way that Garrosh works is he primarily wants to throw the enemy frontliner into his team. And then they also have more consistent, reliable damage with Hanzo and Falstad, two auto attack based characters. So basically, it's in their best interest to just play very slowly and sort of inch towards the enemy team and just only hit what is in front of them. In general, they never really want to dive or anything. They want to just win by sort of whittling away at the enemy team's front line, which in this case is a Nubarak, who really doesn't enjoy being against double auto attack heroes because he's more of an anti-mage type character. Whereas the red team doesn't really have the luxury of doing that. If they try to play front to back, they'll lose. Because a Nubarak is just worse than Garrosh at that. He's more of a dive tank. Hogger is also more of a dive-based character, as opposed to how Blaze is more defensive. Basically, like on all fronts, they're more dive-based. But they do have the tools with Light Bomb, potentially, and then Cocoon, and Hogger, Hortapult. They have a lot of tools, but pre-level 10, it's going to be rough. So just in case, it's going to have to be pretty careful and hopefully not get too antsy into level 10. Hopefully they recognize that that's their win condition.
Just in case, did have to back off there with the leap from Gunner to be able to heal up a little bit from the well in the bottom lane, but that's going to be a toss into Deadwish, who's taking a lot of damage. Just in case comes in with the burrow charge, and Stukov is going to go down. First blood over to the side of committing Sudoku, but a trade will happen here into the Anubarak. Some poke out from Pirate Realm on the Hanzo, building out those scatter arrows on the simple geometry. 7 out of the 20 stacks.
Yeah, I'm surprised that they were even able to trade 1 for 1. The red team just straight up outplayed them in the actual fight, and then they're gonna get the Immortal for it too. So just really, really good. Like, you have to outplay from the red team's perspective in order to win any fights at this point in the game. So to do that is really, really a good sign for the early game, because they shouldn't be winning right now, basically. Like they're really happy right now for sure.
We do have Hans on the left-hand side burning down the Immortal with Porky and friends, zoning back, committing Sudoku. Hogger moves in from the top lane. Concussion Mine just so much onto the Thanatos, even the follow-up burrow charge from Just In Case. There's going to be a very split Hogger who tries to get away, but the spin to win doesn't really work out for him. Not a Sonya, so going to be going down there. And still, Pirate Realm on the Hanzo on the left-hand side of the objective phase, working his way through that Immortal, playing against the rock right there, which actually I just noticed that Pirate was able to avoid the spin from the Immortal by just stepping near that edge. I'd never seen that before. That's really that's cool. But big burrow charge in from Just In Case. Can they actually find the damage necessary? Because this Anubarak feels way too far forward and does get leapt away by Gunner.
Yeah, it's kind of a shame that the red team was not able to do enough poke. The blue team had a really, really strong defense, though. It's hard to break through that sort of armor of their team composition. It's kind of especially with Garrosh, their composition is kind of like a big meat grinder, just sort of rolling towards the enemy team. And the blue team has to be very, very coordinated if they want to not get meat ground. So